Chapter 4154. Wei Shinjin choked on his words as he came back to his senses. Yeah, why would Lin Yi help him for no reason at all? The reason why he suddenly knelt before Lin Yi was because he suddenly realized that it was impossible for him to kill Situ Qian. He was a cripple, and it was impossible for him to kill Situ Qian with his own hands. If there was anyone in the world who was willing to kill Situ Qian, it would be Lin Yi who was standing in front of him. However, Lin Yi was backed by the mighty will of heaven and was the owner of the Tiandan Pavilion. His status was unparalleled. On the other hand, Wei Shinjin was now a cripple. His strength was not even comparable to a slightly stronger, ordinary person. Why would he need Lin Yi's help? Moreover, although it was the bitch Situ Qian who instigated the conflict, strictly speaking, they still had a grudge against each other. Even if he transferred all his hatred to Situ Qian, it did not mean that Lin Yi would do the same. Previously, it was Situ Qian who set me up and instigated me to misunderstand you and Shueli. That's why I was so impulsive and offended you. Wei Shenjin fell to the ground in despair and helplessness. He muttered to himself, "But now I've seen the true face of this bitch. She's just a whore who has been ridden by thousands of men. She's a vicious woman with a venomous heart." Lin Yi looked at him and didn't say anything to interrupt. To be honest, he thought that Wei Shinjin and Situ Qian were just a couple who were in cahoots with each other. But now it seemed that there was more to it than meets the eye. After I became a cripple, she shamelessly ran around with that ugly Ma Shangfeng. She did not respect me, her real husband, at all. She even wanted to kill me so that I would not be an eyesore to her. Do you think there is a bitch more shameless than her in this world? Wei Shinjin forced a smile and exposed his own dirty linen. He told her everything that had happened to Situ Qian, including the boy toy and the artificial membrane. He did not hide anything. Lin Yi was stunned after hearing this. He already knew that Situ Qian was not a good person. However, after hearing what Wei Shinjin said, he was still shocked. There was actually a woman who was even more despicable than Morongjin in this world. Situ Qian was really a weirdo. I'm very clear about that traitor's temperament. Since she has her eyes on you, it's impossible for her to let go so easily. When she returns, she'll definitely think of a way to stir up trouble. She's a natural slut, and she'll do anything to get you. Furthermore, I believe that you're a gentleman, and you definitely won't be willing to collude with such a scoundrel. So, if you don't kill her, you'll definitely be in trouble, and you won't be able to get rid of it. Wei Shinjin earnestly advised. However, if I were to kill him, the entire Snow Sword School would definitely be enraged. Wouldn't that be even more troublesome? Lin Yi said calmly. You don't have to worry about that. I can cooperate with you and help you get rid of this hidden danger. Seeing that Lin Yi seemed to have loosened up a little, Wei Shinjin was immediately overjoyed. He quickly offered a plan. After I return to the Snow Sword School, I'll insist that you're not Wu Fu, Lin Yi. That way, even if Situ Qian tells the truth, they'll only be skeptical. Moreover, I believe that bitch will definitely not expose your identity in order to get you. So you don't have to worry. And then, Lin Yi said calmly, according to what Wei Shinjin had said, it could indeed be a smokescreen. Even if it couldn't completely eliminate the suspicion, it could at least confuse the enemy for a short period of time. Then, you can think of a way to hint to that bitch. Loosen the reins only to grasp them better. Pretend to agree to lure her out. I believe that with your strength, it'll be absolutely easy for you to kill her. At that time, we'll fake the crime scene and I'll take the blame. I'll say that I killed Situ Qian. After all, I'm useless and I don't want to live like this anymore. Wei Shinjin said emotionally. Hearing this, Lin Yi pondered for a moment. If he did what Wei Shinjin had said, he could indeed kill Situ Qian easily. Moreover, as long as Wei Shinjin was willing to expose his family's dirty linen, he would have enough motive to kill Lin Yi. That way, no one would suspect him. It was a good suggestion, but it wasn't that safe. Why should I believe you? Lin Yi looked at Wei Xinjin and asked in a deep voice, I'm willing to sign a spiritual beast contract with you. You can use a high-grade spiritual pet talisman to control me. As long as I'm willing, even a human can become your spiritual pet. Wei Xinjin said excitedly, You want to become my spiritual pet? Lin Yi was shocked. This was not impossible. After all, a high-grade spiritual pet talisman could indeed control people. However, since ancient times, very few people would do so. After all, who would be willing to be controlled by someone else for their entire life? One should know that the intelligence of humans was far above that of spiritual beasts. The complexity of their yuan-shin was also unique. Even if it was a high-grade spiritual pet talisman, even if there was a huge disparity in strength, if the target was not willing to cooperate, it would be impossible to successfully tame it. That's right. I'm willing to become your spiritual pet. Wei Xinjin's eyes lit up. In order to kill Sida Qian, he was ready to risk everything, including his life and dignity. Then wait here for a moment. Let me think about it. Lin Yi did not agree immediately. Instead, he turned around and went back to his room to concoct a heart-devouring poisonous pill. This was something he learned in the common world when he was training with his Shifu. It was taught by his Shifu's wife, Lan Ling. Once this pill was consumed, the person would have to listen to the person who gave it wholeheartedly. Otherwise, the person's heart would be devoured by thousands of bugs. This thing, unless it was an expert in the art of goo, even the best pharmacist, or even a doctor saint like Zhang Liju, might not be able to cure it. After all, everyone had their own specializations, and they weren't in the same system. Conventional thinking and experience wouldn't work at all. As for the high-grade spiritual pet talisman that Wei Xinjin had mentioned, with Lin Yi's current wealth and connections, it was not hard to get it. His control over it was far above the heart-devouring poisonous pill, and he could turn Wei Xinjin into a puppet. However, this thing had its drawbacks. Once something happened to the spiritual pet, the owner would suffer a huge backlash as well. Back then, Meng Tong was spitting out blood because of the blackback stick ape. Wei Xinjin had already made it clear that he was prepared to die with Sida Qian. If Lin Yi still took him in as a spiritual pet, wouldn't he be waiting for the backlash? The heart-devouring poisonous pill was the safest choice. This was similar to the poison he gave Dafeng Bro in the common world. He had enough control over it, and he didn't have to worry about any side effects. However, a few days before he left, Lin Yi had already given the antidote to Qintian and asked him to bring it to Dafeng Bro. Our 1152. Chapter 4155. This is called the heart-devouring curse pill. Eat it, and I will believe you. Lin Yi returned to the living room and handed the heart-devouring curse pill to Wei Xinjin. You betrayed me. You will die a horrible death. After receiving the heart-devouring curse pill, Wei Xinjin swallowed it without hesitation. He was already prepared to be Lin Yi's pet. Why would he be afraid of this small pill? Is it okay now? Now you don't have to worry about me betraying you, and you can attack the *H Sida Qian, right? Although Wei Xinjin didn't know what he was eating, he was sure that it was something similar to controlling him. So he said impatiently, Well, I'll leave that to you. Lin Yi smiled faintly. What? I'll kill her myself? I'm a useless person now. How can I kill her? Wei Xinjin was stunned. When he reacted, he was furious. He said sadly and helplessly, You tricked me. He'd bet everything on Lin Yi, even his life and dignity, but all he got in return was Lin Yi telling him to kill him. How the hell could he accept that? I never lie. Since I told you to kill her yourself, I will naturally give you the ability. Why would I trick you? Lin Yi smiled faintly and gestured for Wei Xinjin to meditate at the side. Sit down first. I will help you recover your damaged meridians. Recover meridians? Wei Xinjin was shocked. He immediately threw his sadness and helplessness to the back of his mind. He stared at Lin Yi in disbelief. How is this possible? Don't lie to me. My meridians have been shattered by you. Even the 4th grade recover pill and the 5th grade meridian conduit pill have no effect. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a useless person. You should know this. I know. The meridian conduit pill doesn't work, but that doesn't mean I can't heal you. Do you know that the will of heaven's meridians were shattered just like yours? It's even more serious than yours. Aren't you still as lively as before? Lin Yi smiled faintly. You healed the will of heaven? Wei Xinjin paled as he looked at Lin Yi. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. The will of heaven's recovery was a mystery in the whole of Zhongdao. No one knew who did it. Some said it was the mysterious medicine master. Some said it was Zhang Liju's painstaking research. There were all sorts of theories. The will of heaven never came out to clarify anything. The will of heaven himself. The pill hall of the hall didn't say anything. Wei Shenjin had never imagined that this was actually the work of Lin Yi. If it was someone else who said this, Wei Shenjin would definitely think that this person was talking nonsense and trying to flatter himself. However, it was Lin Yi, so he believed it without hesitation. Otherwise, with the status of a legendary master like the will of heaven, even if Lin Yi was his brother-in-law, how could he try so hard to protect Lin Yi, a new disciple of the 3 pavilions in the North Island? He did not answer Wei Shenjin's question. Lin Yi directly gave him the answer with his actions. In just a short 2 hours, Wei Shenjin was shocked to discover that all the meridians in his body had been shattered. It had miraculously recovered to its original state. This is simply a miracle. Wei Shenjin instantly fell into a state of ecstasy. He was originally a cripple who had lost all hope and was just a walking corpse with no future. The only reason for him to continue living was to kill that bitch, Situ Qian. However, he did not expect that the surprise would come so suddenly. For a moment, Wei Shenjin was so excited that he could not even speak. He opened his mouth to speak to Lin Yi, but did not know how to express his gratitude. Without saying a word, he knelt down again with a plop and kowtowed to Lin Yi 3 times in a row. You don't have to do this. Hurry up and get up. Lin Yi hurried forward to help him up. Although his meridians were also shattered like the will of heaven, Wei Shenjin's injury was much lighter. Unlike the will of heaven's old injury that had accumulated for many years, it was easy for him to repair, and it did not take much effort. Lin Yi, oh no, Boss Lin Yi, you are my second parent. You deserve these kowtows, Wei Shenjin said firmly. Not to mention that Lin Yi had already fed him the heart-devouring vermin. Even without it, he was not an ungrateful person. He was grateful from the bottom of his heart, without any pretense. Lin Yi smiled. He'd seen a lot of people since he'd been in the common world. He could tell whether Wei Shenjin was sincere or not with just one look. Just from this performance alone, Lin Yi could tell that this guy was a man who knew how to repay kindness. Taking someone like this as a follower wasn't a bad deal. Boss Lin Yi, I will go back and kill Situ Qian the bitch, Wei Shenjin said with a murderous look. He was about to leave with his sword. Although his meridians had just recovered, he was confident that he could quickly regain his strength and kill Situ Qian. Wait. Lin Yi stopped him. If you go back and kill her like this, even if you are a core disciple of the Snow Sword faction, you will not be able to escape punishment. Who cares? Wei Shenjin did not care, and said angrily, This woman has brought me such great shame. If I don't kill her, how can there be justice in the world? Before, I was not strong enough, so I had no choice but to drag out an ignoble existence. But now I can't stand it anymore. Even if I die, I will drag this bitch down with me. For such a shameless bitch, you will die with her. Is there any meaning? Lin Yi looked at him coldly and said, Don't forget, your life is mine now. I spent so much effort to cure you, not to let you die with this bitch. But what should I do? Boss Lin Yi, I really can't stand it anymore. Wei Shinjin finally calmed down a little, but he was still tempted. He had already realized that he was different from before. Earlier, he was a hopeless cripple. If he could drag Situ Qian down with him, it would be worth it. But now he had become a core disciple of the early stage of the Gold Core realm with a bright future. If he wanted to exchange his life with a bitch like Situ Qian, it would only be stupid. Wait here for me for a moment. Lin Yi smiled, turned around, and went out to make 2 kinds of medicine. When he came back, he gave them to Wei Shinjin. This, you want me to poison that bitch? Wei Shinjin said in surprise. Of course not. If it was just a simple poison, Situ Qian's death would be easily traced back to you. What's the difference between that and you directly killing Situ Qian? The 2 medicines I gave you are the right medicine. Even if Situ Qian dies in the end, no one will suspect you. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. The right medicine? What do you mean? Wei Shinjin was still confused. To be continued. Chapter 4156. It's very simple. When you get back, take the initiative to please Situ Qian. Then, both of you will take the first drug. By then, both of you will be very happy. I guarantee that the effect will be even better than the one in the Central Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yi explained. Ah, do I have to pretend to please that bitch? All right, I'll listen to Boss Lin Yi. When Wei Shinjin thought of Situ Qian's face, he felt disgusted. It was fine if she did not have the strength, but she had the strength. But since Lin Yi had said so, he could only nod and agree. With Situ Qian's slutty nature, after tasting the sweetness, she will definitely take the drug and secretly find her lover, Ma Shangfeng. When that time comes, just let her take the second drug. Lin Yi continued to teach. Oh, all right, but what's the difference between the second drug? Wei Shinjin asked curiously. Of course, the second drug's effect is even stronger than the first one, but there's also a problem. Lin Yi laughed and said, if a man takes it, it will cause his kidney water acupuncture point to become stagnant, causing him to lose his yang energy and die. But you reminded me that the name Ma Shangfeng is quite a good match. If a woman takes it, she will become dizzy. Her body will act like a natural instinct and will not be able to stop. In the end, her heart will not be able to withstand the extreme excitement and she will die. Uft. Good. That's great. Boss Lin Yi is really a god. This kind of drug that kills without leaving a trace is practically made for that bitch couple. It's impossible for them not to fall for it. Wei Shinjin was overjoyed. If he did what Lin Yi said, he wouldn't need to take any risks at all. It was all Situ Qian's fault, and no one from the Snow's Word School would suspect Wei Shinjin anymore. They'd only think that the couple was a shameless couple and deserved to die. Wei Shinjin didn't know what to do. Hee, when you go back this time, be careful not to reveal your strength. If you are exposed, Situ Qian might not go to Ma Shangfeng anymore. If that happens, our plan will be ruined, Lin Yi reminded him. Don't worry, Boss Lin Yi, I understand. That slut is shameless to the extreme. She had an affair with that ugly Ma Shangfeng because she didn't like Ma Shangfeng at all. She was just fooling around to satisfy her cravings. If she finds out that I've recovered, she'll definitely shamelessly stick to me again. You will continue to act innocent in front of me and play me like a fool. Wei Shinjin nodded. That's right. That's what I'm trying to say. After Situ Qian's death, I'm afraid that you, as her husband, will still have to be investigated. When that time comes, make sure to clean up the traces. Blame the 2 drugs that I gave you on Situ Qian. Tell her that she secretly bought them from the Central Chamber of Commerce. Tell them about your helplessness and sorrow. The facts are there, and they will definitely believe you. Lin Yi continued to guide him. All right, in any case, if nothing unexpected happens, that slut Situ Qian should have died together with Ma Shangfeng. With the irrefutable evidence, I believe that no one will say anything. Wei Shinjin agreed. That's right. That's about the whole plan. Do you have any other questions? Tell me, and I'll help you solve them, Lin Yi asked. I don't have any questions, but… Wei Shinjin hesitated for a moment. He said worriedly, Situ Qian is Situ Guangzong's biological granddaughter. If she dies like this, Situ Guangzong's old face as an elder of the Snow Sword faction will be completely lost. He won't be able to raise his head again. Even if he can't say anything at the time, he will definitely find an opportunity to deal with me later. After all, as long as I'm alive, people will think of the Situ family's immoral granddaughter. That will make him lose face. Situ Guangzong is indeed a threat. However, I can help you solve this problem. Lin Yi smiled and gave him an idea. After the incident, you can come to our Tiandan pavilion. When you go back, tell everyone that Big Brother the Will of Heaven healed your injuries. That way, you will regain your strength and potential and become a core disciple of the Snow Sword faction. You might even have a relationship with Big Brother the Will of Heaven. At that time, who would dare to deal with you? That's right. That's great. Thank you, Boss Lin Yi, for your guidance. I can't thank you enough for your kindness. In the future, no matter what you want me to do, even if I have to climb a mountain of daggers or swim a sea of flames, I, Wei Shinjin, will not hesitate. Wei Shinjin said gratefully and excitedly. This person, Lin Yi, not only did he have great strength, he also had a miraculous ability. He also had a profound background. And most importantly, he had a shrewd mind. Every time he came into contact with Lin Yi, Wei Shinjin couldn't help but be secretly shocked. Even if he didn't have the grace of giving him a new life, even if he didn't have the heart-devouring parasite, he had already started to sincerely feel that it was not wrong for him to worship this boss. In the future, if even such a person couldn't reach the highest level, then perhaps no one in this world would have the qualifications to stand at the peak of Heaven Stage Island. I don't need you to do anything for the time being. After you go back, think of a way to cancel your wanted order. Then, put the matter of your recovery on Big Brother the Will of Heaven's head. Don't let it have anything to do with me, Lin Yi instructed. The reason why Lin Yi repeatedly emphasized this point was because he had his own concerns. There were many experts on Heaven Stage Island. Once the news that he had restored Wei Shinjin's meridian spread, others would naturally get to the bottom of it. At that time, it would be unavoidable for him to attract the attention of those apex bigwigs and be pushed to the heart of the struggle. On the contrary, if he pushed everything on the will of heaven and said that he had recovered by himself, then even if others had doubts, they wouldn't be able to verify it. After all, they couldn't just go to the will of heaven and ask him directly. Besides, even if they asked, the will of heaven would cooperate with Lin Yi's act, and they wouldn't be able to get the truth out of him. It's not a problem to put the matter on Senior the Will of Heaven. But Boss Lin Yi, it might not be of any use for me to say that you are Wu Fu Ling Yi. After all, Southern Aurora and the others have sworn that you are Wu Fu Ling Yi. Even if I go back and deny it, the higher-ups of the Snow Sword faction will only be skeptical and won't directly cancel the wanted order. Wei Shinjin awkwardly scratched his head. Just a moment ago, he had sworn that he would do anything for Lin Yi. But in the blink of an eye, he was stumped by such a small matter. During this period of time, Wei Shinjin increasingly felt that his intelligence was insufficient. That's simple. After you go back, just tell them that they don't dare to confirm my identity. Furthermore, the will of heaven often appears here. So even if they confirm it, they can't make a move. Let them decide. Lin Yi paused for a moment before continuing. As for the matter of canceling the wanted order, wait until you publicly recover. Just say that although you were injured by someone in Tiandan Pavilion, the will of heaven also healed your injuries, so they offset each other. With Big Brother the Will of Heaven's face here, I believe that the higher-ups of the Snow Sword faction will be sensible. Chapter 4157. To Lin Yi, it was not a big threat to him whether or not he removed the wanted order. He did it mainly for Sydney's sake. Before returning to the North Island, he had to get rid of all the potential threats. All right, I understand. Boss Lin Yi, you're right. The higher-ups are indeed very afraid of Senior, the will of heaven. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let us come here first to verify it. Wei Shinjin agreed. All right, then you can go back now. Just do as I said just now and act according to the plan. Lin, he said with a nod. All right, Boss Lin Yi, don't worry and wait for my good news. Wei Shinjin bid farewell to Lin Yi with cupped hands, then turned around and left eagerly. He could not wait to kill that *TCH Sidu Qian. After returning to Snow Sword Faction, the first thing Wei Shinjin did was naturally to report to Situ, Guangzhong, and the others. As he had expected, the *TCH Situ Qian was indeed not there. Shinjin, you're back. Tell us, did you see Sydney? Can you confirm that Lin Yi is Wu Fuling Yi? Situ Guangzhong and the others asked hurriedly. Seeing everyone's reaction, Wei Shinjin understood. Situ Qian had other plans for Lin Yi that she had not reported to these people. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. I didn't see Sydney, but I did see Lin Yi. Judging from his temperament, he is very different from Wu Fuling Yi. I can't be sure that the two are the same person. Moreover, I heard that the will of heaven appears there every few days. Even if I can confirm it, I can't do anything to him in Tiandan Pavilion. Wei Shinjin reported according to Lin Yi's instructions. Can't be sure? How is that possible? Nantian Aurora, Si Haishao, Patriarch Xianqin, and the others immediately exchanged glances. This matter was not fabricated out of thin air to fool the Snow Sword Faction. Instead, it was something that was already set in stone. How could they not be certain? This disciple is merely stating the facts and doesn't dare to jump to conclusions. Otherwise, this disciple can't afford to rashly bring unnecessary disaster to the sect. Wei Shinjin shrugged. Since that's the case, I'll have to find a chance to test it out in the future. After all, this matter is of great importance, and I hope that Dean Nantian can understand. No matter what, our sect will always remember everyone's good intentions, Situ Guangzhong said after a moment of silence. He had also thought it through. Although Wu Fulin, he had to be captured, and this concerned the reputation of the entire Snow Sword School. Unless there was solid evidence, he would not act recklessly against Lin Yi and Tiandan Pavilion. After all, it was best not to provoke a troublesome demon like the will of heaven. Otherwise, something big would happen. Even an elder like Situ Guangzhong, who held real power, would not be able to bear such a heavy responsibility. Then, all right, this is your sex matter after all. We're just reminding you out of goodwill. We're just afraid that if this matter drags on, it will affect your sect's reputation. Since your sect is not anxious, we have nothing else to say, Nantan Aurora said indifferently, somewhat dissatisfied. Dean Nantian, you're exaggerating. The information you provided is a timely rein for us. Our entire sect can't thank you enough. As for that Lin Yi, if he really is Wu Fuling Yi, we will definitely not let him off. Situ Guangzhong hurriedly smiled apologetically. It's getting late. This old man has already gotten people to prepare a banquet. Everyone, please stay and have a few drinks. Let us properly perform our duties as hosts. Otherwise, we won't be able to rest easy. Nantian Aurora and the others exchanged glances. Although the Snow Sword School had an attitude, as long as they said a few more words, there was still a possibility that they could deal with Lin Yi. There was no need to make their relationship too stiff. They immediately nodded in agreement. The two elders, Situ Guangzhong and Wei Feng, appeared to entertain Nantian Aurora and the others. As for a small fry like Wei Shinjin, he was merely a cripple in everyone's eyes. Naturally, he didn't have the qualifications to sit at the table and was sent home by Situ Guangzhong. However, this was exactly what Wei Shinjin wanted. He wasn't like Lin Yi, who was good at hiding his strength. In just a few words, he was already on the verge of being exposed. Fortunately, his meridians had just recovered, and his strength was only showing signs of recovering slightly. In addition, everyone thought that he was a cripple and didn't pay much attention to him. Otherwise, experts like Nantian Aurora and Situ Guangzong would probably be able to see through him. If that happened, the plan that Lin Yi had given him would be ruined. After returning to his room, Wei Shinjin was somewhat surprised to discover that Situ Qian, the hussy, had not gone to look for her senior brother Ma to have some fun. Instead, she was sitting in the room, sulking, while her maid, little Qiuhua, accompanied her and consoled her. Humph, it seems that this slut is really interested in big brother Lin Yi. Wei Shinjin sneered. Then he stepped into the room and deliberately squeezed out a smile. He said to Situ Qian, I just found something good in Tiandan Pavilion. Why don't we try it now? Something good? What is it? Situ Qian frowned and glanced at him. It's something good to liven up the mood. I heard that it's very effective. It's the only one of its kind. Wei Shenjin immediately took out the 2 packets of medicine that Lin Yi had given him. The packaging looked exactly the same. As for which packet was problematic and which was not, only he knew. Something good to liven up the mood? Tiandan Pavilion actually sells this stuff? Quick, let me have a look. Situ Qian, who was originally depressed, immediately became spirited when she heard this. Her eyes lit up as she took the first packet of medicine from Wei Shinjin. Little Qiuhua, who was beside her, also came over excitedly. Sure enough, a pair of shameless bitches. Wei Shinjin secretly sneered. Seeing that the 2 women were immersed in studying the medicine for a while, he took the initiative to suggest, "You won't be able to tell just by looking at it. Whether it's good or not, you'll only know after you use it. Then why don't you hurry up?" Situ Qian couldn't wait to take off her clothes. Little Qiuhua also followed her to the bed and kept urging Wei Shinjin to hurry up. Wei Shinjin secretly smiled. Then he endured the nausea and walked over. After the 3 of them took the first packet of medicine, as Lin Yi had said before, they were much more satisfied than ever before. Even Situ Qian and little Qiuhua, who were insatiable women, felt a little overwhelmed. They were simply as happy as gods. Afterwards, the 2 women even felt that they had lived for so many years in vain. Even those expensive livening medicines in the Central Chamber of Commerce could not be compared to such a miraculous medicine. In front of such a miraculous medicine, those could only be regarded as a pile of shit at most. Having tasted such sweetness, of course, with Situ Qian and little Qiuhua's licentious nature, it was impossible for them to give up. Early the next morning, before Wei Shinjin woke up, Situ Qian pushed Wei Shinjin and asked him to get up and do it again. However, Wei Shinjin said in a daze, "I can't, Qian. Senior brother is too tired to get up." Chapter 4158. Useless Thing. Situ Qian couldn't hold back her anger. She cursed under her breath and sneaked out with the 2nd packet of medicine with little Qiuhua. Naturally, this scene fell into the eyes of Wei Shinjin, who was pretending to be lazy, and his lips curled up in a mocking smile. Boss Lin, he really was a genius at scheming. Up until now, everything was going according to his script, and there was no deviation at all. Situ Qian, little Qiuhua, and Ma Shangfeng. The death of you 3 is finally coming. Situ Qian and little Qiuhua, who had no idea what was going on, found Ma Shangfeng excitedly and began to make love to him. In their opinion, Ma Shangfeng was already very strong in that aspect, and after taking this magical medicine, he would definitely be far better than a cripple like Wei Shinjin. Today was going to be a good day. Sure enough, after taking the 2nd packet of medicine, the 3 of them immediately felt it. The excitement that made their faces blush and their hearts beat faster was obviously much stronger than last night. Situ Qian and little Qiuhua didn't notice anything wrong at all. Instead, they were overjoyed. On the other hand, Ma Shangfeng's reaction at this moment was even worse than the two women. His heart was beating violently, and the blood in his body was burning as if it was about to explode. The last trace of clarity in his mind was instantly drowned, and he instinctively wanted to vent as soon as possible. At the beginning, Ma Shangfeng's strong performance really gave the two women a taste of an unprecedented, wonderful feeling. However, just as they were about to climb to the peak, Ma Shangfeng's body suddenly stiffened, and then he suddenly stopped moving and fell straight to the ground. "Senior brother Ma, what are you waiting for? Hurry up!" Situ Qian complained discontentedly. However, when little Qiuhua saw Ma Shangfeng's current appearance, her eyes suddenly widened, and she was so scared that she stuttered, "Miss! Miss, Senior brother Ma, he what?" Situ Qian frowned and turned her head. After taking a look, she was also shocked. Ma Shangfeng's entire body curled into a ball like a cooked prawn. His expression was hideous and twitching, and he was foaming at the mouth. It seemed that he was exhaling more than he was inhaling. In just a short moment, Ma Shangfeng had completely stopped moving, and he had become a lifeless corpse. He died just like that. Si Tu Qian's head was spinning, and her mind was completely blank. She never would have thought that something like this would happen during the most enjoyable moment. "Miss, what should we do?" Little Qiuhua's face turned ashen. No matter what, Ma Shangfeng was an early-stage Gold Core Realm expert. If he died like this, then the higher-ups of the sect would definitely come to the bottom of this matter. At that time, they would be finished. Situ Qian had Situ Guangzong as her grandfather. At most, she would only lose face and be gossiped about. However, as a little maid with no status, she might become a scapegoat. No, we have to get rid of the evidence. We have to find a way to get rid of the body. Situ Qian gritted her teeth and said, if this matter was spread out, it would be a huge scandal. Even if she did not die, she would not be able to escape punishment. Yes, yes. Little Qiuhua nodded repeatedly and immediately got out of bed. It would be best for her if she could muddle through this matter quietly. However, before the two of them could put on their clothes, they suddenly felt wave after wave of strong impulses surging through their bodies. That indescribable sense of excitement rushed straight to their scalps, and they simply could not stop. This time, not to mention getting rid of the body, the two of them could not even stand steadily. The surging impulses in their bodies were completely out of control, rushing straight to their brains and scalps. The last bit of reason they had was swallowed up. They were like travelers trapped in the desert, crazily wanting to quench their thirst. However, the thing that could quench their thirst was not water, but men. Under the urge of the tide, the two of them could no longer care about Ma Shangfeng. They immediately rushed out of the room in a disheveled manner. At that moment, there was only one voice left in their minds. "Man, I want a man!" The commotion caused by the two of them attracted the attention of a passing Snow Sword School disciple. It just so happened that he was a male. When he saw the two of them in a disheveled state, he was immediately startled. However, before he could react, the two of them had already pounced on him like wolves and tigers. Without saying anything, they stripped him naked and tried to force themselves on him. This damned scene really made the male disciple dumbfounded. Of course, he knew what kind of person Situ Qian was. Not only did she have a noble status, but she also had a good appearance. Coupled with her mannerisms, she was often talked about by the male disciples. However, he did not expect that he would encounter such an encounter today. As a man, he was actually being pushed down by Situ Qian and little Qiuhua. However, even if he usually fantasized about this at this moment, it had happened so suddenly. Furthermore, Situ Qian and little Qiuhua looked too abnormal. The first reaction of the male disciple was not to enjoy it, but to escape. However, Situ Qian and little Qiuhua were currently bathed in fire. It was like a drowning man grasping at the last, life-saving straw. How could they let him go so easily? The two of them forcefully pressed him down, and poured some of the second packet of medicine that they had not used before into his mouth. In the blink of an eye, the male disciple also became vigorous like a dragon and fierce like a tiger. Instead of running away, he took the initiative to mess with the two of them. However, after a while, the male disciple suddenly foamed at the mouth. His body twitched, and he fell to the ground. He followed in Ma Shangfeng's footsteps and died. This time, Situ Qian and little Qiuhua did not know what fear was. Seeing that the male disciple could no longer satisfy them, they immediately threw away the corpse and went to find someone else. They randomly grabbed a passing disciple, dragged him over and fed him medicine. Then, like hungry tigers, they pounced on sheep. In less than an hour, the two of them had used this method to trap 4 male disciples to death. However, the surging desire in their bodies did not lessen at all. Instead, it became even crazier. This time, the matter was completely blown out of proportion. The news of Situ Qian and little Qiuhua madly grabbing male disciples to have sex with them spread like wildfire. Very soon, the entire Snow Sword School knew about it. This was an unprecedented rare event. Hearing the news, the Snow Sword School's disciples all gathered around to watch. When the higher-ups of the school learned about this, the Snow Sword School's disciples who were gathered around to watch the fun were already packed to the brim. At first, Situ Guangzong did not believe it. It was only when he saw Situ Qian and little Qiuhua naked on top of a male disciple. Moaning shamelessly did he finally accept the reality, and he almost fainted. Our 1152. Chapter 4159. The upper echelons of the Snow Sword sect, including Wei Feng, were shocked speechless for a long time upon seeing this explosive scene. They exchanged glances with each other. Only one thing was clear in their minds. Were these two women crazy? Situ Qian, what are you doing? Situ Guangzong was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged as he roared in anger. The prestige he had painstakingly accumulated as an elder for so many years was completely destroyed by this lunatic Situ Qian. In the future, when the other disciples saw him, they would no longer be in awe. Instead, they would point at him and talk about what happened today, talking about the scandal of the Situ family. Thinking of this, Situ Guangzong even wanted to strangle his own granddaughter to death on the spot. Hearing Situ Guangzong's sudden roar, Situ Qian and little Qiuhua, who were immersed in an endless sea of desire, finally regained a bit of consciousness. Turning their heads to look at Situ Guangzong, who was about to swallow the two of them alive, they were instantly shocked. Then, their hearts uncontrollably contracted. Bang! The two women's exposed chests exploded at the same time, blood splattering everywhere. It was a ghastly sight. In front of everyone's eyes, their hearts exploded and they died. For a moment, everyone was silent, including Situ Guangzong. No one could have imagined that the two women would die so suddenly and directly. Following that, everyone's gazes focused on Situ Guangzong. Today's matter could not be said to be small. Starting from Ma Shangfeng, all the way to the sudden deaths of the two girls, a total of 8 people had died. This was an unprecedented event, especially with Situ Qian and little Qiuhua's licentious behavior. The impact was extremely bad. This was not only a scandal of the Situ family. Once it was spread out, it would tarnish the reputation of the entire Snow Sword sect, and even make them the laughingstock of the entire island. The consequences would be unimaginable. Investigate thoroughly for this old man. Why did this happen? Situ Guangzong fiercely ordered through gritted teeth. He was the elder with the highest status here, and Situ Qian was his granddaughter. She had the greatest influence on him, and he was also the most eager to know the truth. Although Situ Qian made him lose face, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the reason why she became so bold and shameless was obviously because she had taken some medicine. There might be some other reason behind it. Situ Guangzong could only hope that this was the case. This was a matter of great importance. They had to find out the truth as soon as possible and quell the rumors. Only then would there be a chance to reduce the impact. The Snow Sword faction's most elite enforcers were immediately dispatched. The first one to be investigated was naturally Situ Qian's real husband, Wei Shenjin. Wei Shenjin was already prepared for this. He immediately told them about Situ Qian and Ma Shangfeng's adultery. When the news spread, the entire Snow Sword faction was in an uproar. Ma Shangfeng's body lay there. Moreover, Situ Qian and little Qiuhua's performance was obvious to all. Therefore, Wei Shenjin's statement was quickly accepted by everyone. Not only did she commit adultery, but she also didn't even let bystanders off. He committed lewd acts in public until he was too excited and finally died. In an instant, Situ Qian, who had already been the talk of the town, became the talk of the town. In the public's opinion, she became a slut who could sleep with anyone. She could even be recorded in the history of the heavenly stage island as a typical slut since ancient times. Regarding this, Situ Guangzong couldn't refute it. As her grandfather, he more or less knew about Situ Qian's temperament. Her adultery with Ma Shangfeng had also been found out. It was impossible for him to distort the truth. However, if the case was closed according to this statement, the impact on the Situ family would be too great. They might even be nailed to the pillar of shame for generations to come. Their Situ family couldn't afford to bear this infamy. Wei Shenjin, you said that Situ Qian and Ma Shangfeng committed adultery. This old man won't comment on this matter for now. However, the reason why she acted so crazily and strangely today was obviously because she overdosed. This was your doing, right? Situ Guangzong forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and coldly rebuked Wei Shenjin. Situ Qian was a ruthless person. This was something he couldn't change. The only thing he could do now was to divert everyone's attention to Wei Shenjin's killing. This way, the Situ family would at least be less affected. Elder Situ, are you saying that I plan to drug her and cause the deaths of Situ Qian and Ma Shangfeng? Wei Shenjin asked in front of everyone. You harbored hatred in your heart, so it's reasonable for you to do such a thing. It's not that this old man can't empathize with you. As long as you confess, this old man can consider giving you a lighter punishment. I can even give you some compensation so that you can live the rest of your life in peace. I hope you can think this through before you speak. Situ Guangzong said, half threatening and half tempting. He didn't have any intention of doing anything to Wei Shenjin, nor did he have any intention of avenging Situ Qian. The only thing he wanted to do was to minimize the impact of this incident. Elder Situ, I will not admit to a groundless accusation. It is as you said after I found out that she committed adultery with Ma Shangfeng. I did have the intention of killing her to vent my anger. Unfortunately, I am now a cripple and don't have the strength to do so. I can't even use my Spirit Jade card. So where would I get the Spirit Jades to buy her medicine? Wei Shenjin smiled bitterly. Situ Guangzong was speechless. Wei Shenjin was speaking the truth. Buying medicine required Spirit Jades. A cripple, like him, couldn't even use a Spirit Jade card, and he couldn't possibly carry a sack of Spirit Jades out of the house. That would be too obvious and would definitely leave an impression on others. Why don't you go to my house and check it out? Just take a look at Situ Qian's dressing room. Inside are all the things she bought. I believe it will be an eye-opener for you. Wei Shenjin coldly laughed. He used to be very afraid of Situ Guangzong, an elder with real power. But after interacting with Lin Yi, he suddenly realized that these so-called big shots were only SOSO. Sooner or later, they would be stepped on by him. Hearing this, Situ Guangzong's face became extremely ugly. But when the enforcer returned from Wei Shenjin's house, his face became even uglier. The dressing room is filled with filthy things used to liven things up. There are also quite a few medicines for both men and women. They are all from the Central Chamber of Commerce and are not cheap, the enforcer reported. This time, Situ Guangzong was completely speechless. The Central Chamber of Commerce's items were famous for being expensive. Wei Xinjin was a cripple and couldn't use his Spirit Jade card, so naturally he couldn't afford these medicines. In the end, he could only conclude that Situ Qian, that bitch, had reaped what she sowed and killed herself. All right, I understand. You guys do as you see fit. Situ Guangzong coldly glared at Wei Xinjin and angrily stormed off. From his eyes, it could be seen that he didn't know what was good for him. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4160. Seeing the situation, Wei Feng walked over to remind him. Why bother? You were just going through the motions with him. You won't suffer any substantial losses. Why do you have to bear a grudge against him for no reason? You have to be careful in the future. Although Wei Xinjin was one of his people, he was currently a cripple. If Situ Guangzong really wanted to find fault with him, just a casual word from him would be enough to send him to his death. It was impossible for him to go against a powerful elder for the sake of a cripple. At that time, Wei Xinjin could only pray for his own good fortune. Thank you for the reminder, Uncle Feng. However, I'll say it again. Since it's not my fault, why should I take it? Wei Xinjin smiled calmly. If he was really a cripple, he might really drag out an ignoble existence. However, the situation now was different. Then you're on your own. Wei Feng helplessly patted his shoulder, shook his head and left with a sigh. He then began to ponder whether he should completely give up on Wei Xinjin. However, in just a few short days, before he could completely make up his mind, a shocking piece of news suddenly came. Wei Xinjin's meridians had been repaired by someone. However, what was even more shocking was the meaning behind it. Wei Xinjin's meridians had been personally repaired by the Vice Island Master of the Middle Island, the Will of Heaven. This was quite interesting. At the level of the Will of Heaven, every action of his had a profound meaning. Even if he did not have it himself, with so many people watching, they would take the initiative to interpret it for him. For a moment, the entire Snow Sword School looked at Wei Xinjin in a completely different way than before. First, his meridians were crippled. Then, he was cuckolded by Situ Qian. Just as he was about to reach the lowest point of his life, he suddenly changed. Not only did he completely recover from his injuries, he even formed a relationship with a top figure like the Will of Heaven. Wei Xinjin's experience was like a roller coaster, full of ups and downs. Leaving aside the private discussions of the crowd, the reactions of the upper echelon of the Snow Sword faction were surprisingly unanimous. They restored Wei Xinjin's status and treatment as a core disciple. At the same time, they gave up on the arrest of Wu Fulingi. This decision had been made by the sect master on the spot, and many of the elders had unanimously approved of it. Even Situ Guangzong, who harbored hatred in his heart, could only maintain his silence, not daring to say anything to stop it. Wei Xinjin was a core disciple. Now that he had recovered from his injuries and regained his identity, it was a matter of course. As for giving up on the arrest of Wu Fulingi, it was to express goodwill to the Vice Island Master of the Middle Island, the Will of Heaven. After all, to the entire Snow Sword School, since Wei Xinjin had already recovered, the matter of Wu Fuling was no longer important. At most, they would only be gossiped about. However, expressing goodwill to the Will of Heaven was a huge matter that concerned the entire school. If they continued to hold on to Wu Fulingi and continued to go against the Tiandan Pavilion and the Will of Heaven behind it, they would not be able to do anything to Wu Fulingi. Then they would really be stupid. Shunjin, after going through all those inhuman trials, you have finally seen the light. I am deeply gratified. Wei Feng smiled as he patted Wei Xinjin's shoulder. He immediately passed on the decision of the higher-ups to him. Thank you, Uncle Feng. Trials make one advance. If I hadn't gone through all that, I might still be complacent. Arrogant and complacent. I don't know that there is always someone better out there. Thinking back, this is actually not a bad thing. Wei Xinjin sighed as he shook his head. That's right. As long as you can endure it, all the trials are not bad. Xinjin, you have grown quite a bit. Wei Feng immediately had a whole new level of respect for him. Although his strength was not much different from before, the feeling that Wei Xinjin gave off now was as if he had been reborn. He could not be underestimated. Wei Xinjin smiled. If it weren't for these things, he would not have been forced to become Lin Yi's subordinate. Looking at it from a long-term perspective, being able to form a relationship with a heaven-defying genius like Lin Yi, even if it meant becoming his lackey, was definitely more beneficial than detrimental. It was something that he could not wish for. Elder Situ probably won't dare to do anything to you for the time being. You just need to be careful. Wei Feng reminded him. Then he suddenly lowered his voice and said, Right, the sect master has personally instructed you to go to the Tiandan Pavilion more often in the future. Do you understand the meaning behind this? Uncle Feng, don't worry. I understand. Wei Xinjin smiled in understanding. He had already expected this. The purpose of asking him to go to the Tiandan Pavilion more often was to let him take the opportunity to build a bridge between the Snow Sword faction's higher-ups and the big boss of the Will of Heaven. From the looks of it, the impact of the Will of Heaven's strong return on the power structure of Middle Island had already begun to show its effects. Even the Snow Sword faction had taken the initiative to express their goodwill to the Will of Heaven. In the future, they might even get closer to the Will of Heaven. Presumably, the other sects would also have their own responses. Maybe this was the sign of a new round of power reshuffling. With the sect master's instructions as a shield, if Wei Xinjin went to the Tiandan Pavilion again, it would be a dignified matter. No one would be able to gossip about it. Rushing to the Tiandan Pavilion, Wei Xinjin reported the decision of the higher-ups to Lin Yi. In the end, he could not help but add a sigh. Everything is under control. Boss Lin Yi is really a godly person. Seeking benefits and avoiding harm is human nature. When you reach the level of a sect leader, face is just a price. In the face of substantial benefits, you can cast it aside at any time, Lin Yi said with a smile. Boss, that's because you have a good foresight. Without your help, my current situation would be unimaginable. It's very likely that I would have been a corpse. I couldn't even kill that bitch Sidu Qian, let alone regain my strength and identity. I will never forget your great kindness. After saying that, Wei Xinjin bowed to Lin Yi 3 times respectfully, expressing his sincere gratitude. You don't have to do that. Since the matter here has been settled, I'm going to leave for the North Island in these 2 days. You should also pay attention to the Tiandan Pavilion in the future. Although there won't be any trouble with Big Brother the Will of Heaven. If it's just some small fries who don't know what to do, we can't let the dignified Deputy Island Master of Zhongdao solve the problem. Besides, Tianchan and Sydney are women, so it's not convenient for them to show up in public. So, we need you to take care of them, Lin Yi ordered. He only had a few friends here. In addition to the Will of Heaven, there were Kai Zhongyang and Ho Guanqi. Both of them were busy people. It was obviously unrealistic to ask them to hang around in the Tiandan Pavilion every day. So, this task could only fall on Wei Xinjin. Boss Lin Yi, don't worry. It just so happens that the sect leader asked me to walk around in the Tiandan Pavilion more often. I promise that I'll come here every day. If anyone dares to make trouble, I'll kill him. Wei Xinjin said with a murderous look. The strength of the early stage of Gold Core Realm was not very powerful in Zhongdao, but he had the Snow Sword faction and the Will of Heaven behind him, so he was naturally confident and fearless. Welcome to the Murloc Public Account Weishin Yurin 22. The Murloc will publish the latest news on it. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 4161. Then I'll have to trouble you, said Lin Yi with a smile and a nod. The Snow Sword faction had given up on Wu Fuling Yi's arrest order and turned to the Tiandan Pavilion. This was not a secret. If someone were to investigate, they would be able to find out everything. Most of the people in the know were just there to watch the show and discuss it after a meal. However, when Nantion, Aurora, and the others heard the news, they exploded in anger on the spot. What the hell is this Snow Sword faction doing? We lowered ourselves to provide them with information. But not only did they not deal with Lin Yi, they actually turned around and got along with Lin Yi. They're simply a bunch of despicable people. We've spent so much effort to design this for nothing, said Si Hai Xiao indignantly. That's right, Dean Nantion. They're not taking you seriously at all. The will of heaven behind Lin Yi isn't easy to deal with, but do you think we're easy to deal with? How preposterous! Patriarch Xianqin was similarly furious. He did not forget to provoke them with his words. These damned bastards! Nantion Aurora's face was as gloomy as water. The fact that he was killed by the will of heaven in one move previously was enough to make him unable to raise his head. He was just deliberately not thinking about it. However, the Snow Sword faction's actions were clearly a slap to his face. If the current Vice Island Master of Middle Island was him instead of the will of heaven, even if the Snow Sword faction had the guts, they would not dare to do this. Old friend Nantion, what should we do now? Should we go to the Snow Sword faction and trample on them? Let's see if they still dare to look down on us in the future, suggested Si Hai Xiao. Nantion Aurora was moved. He could not swallow this anger. However, after a slight hesitation, the remaining bit of reason made him dispel this idea. He had the backing of the Cultivator Academy and the Central Chamber of Commerce. Furthermore, he was one of the few early-stage, profound ascension experts of Middle Island. He indeed had enough confidence to face a mere Snow Sword faction. However, he had joined the center with a secret identity. Even if things got out of hand, it would not be good for the center to stand up for him. In fact, he might even be punished instead. Forget it. I'll become enemies with the entire Snow Sword School. The impact of this matter is too great, and it might even affect the plans of the higher-ups. We can't act rashly. What I'm having a headache over right now isn't this, but Lin Yi. Nantion Aurora rubbed his temples in distress. When Si Hai Xiao and Patriarch Xianqin heard this, they could not help but fall silent. Lin Yi might return to the North Island at any time. In the end, they did not even have the chance to borrow the saber's shadow. The previous plan of killing with a borrowed knife was simply a joke. Since the Snow Sword School can't do it, let's go. Why don't we go to another restaurant? Patriarch Black Earth suggested. Which one? Lin Yi has only been in Middle Island for a short period of time. There aren't many people who know his name, and even fewer who have conflicts with him. What's more, he's backed by the will of heaven. Unless there's a life-and-death blood feud, who would provoke him? Si Hai Xiao said helplessly. Then what should we do? We can't just let that brat Lin Yi go like this, right? Patriarch Black Earth was also helpless, but he still said unwillingly. Looks like we can only ask for instructions from the higher-ups. If the higher-ups agree, even if we personally kill that brat Lin Yi, we won't have to worry about the threat of the will of heaven, Nantion Aurora decided. Si Hai Xiao and Patriarch Black Earth looked at each other and nodded in agreement. After all, there was no other good plan they could think of at the moment. The three of them immediately set off for the Central Chamber of Commerce to meet that mysterious black-clothed man and tell him the ins and outs of the matter. They waited for the mysterious man to make a decision, but the mysterious man's words shocked the three of them. That Lin Yi, you guys don't touch him for now. I've been paying attention to this person for a long time, and he's also on the list of people I want to rope in, the mysterious man said lightly. Nantion Aurora and the other two looked at each other and were instantly speechless. Although they were extremely unwilling, they didn't dare to have any objections. They could only nod and agree. Feeling helpless, the three of them broke out in a cold sweat in unison. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never have imagined that even their immediate superior, the mysterious man, would actually think so highly of Lin Yi. Fortunately, they didn't rush to make a move. Otherwise, if they really disregarded everything and killed Lin Yi, which would ruin the mysterious man's plan, they would really be in big trouble. Nantian Aurora and the other two could only give up on the matter of dealing with Lin Yi. As for Si Haishao, he could only return to the North Island gloomily. His main mission in coming to Middle Island this time was to rope in Nantian Aurora. As for dealing with Lin Yi, that was just an idea that came to him after he accidentally discovered it. Now that Nantian Aurora had already joined the center, and the higher-ups didn't allow them to touch Lin Yi, there was nothing for them to do even if they continued to stay in Middle Island, so they could only return home. Even so, he was still very unwilling in his heart. Back then, he suffered great humiliation in front of Lin Yi. Not only did he lose all his face, but he was even beaten up so badly that he almost reported to the King of Hell. It could be said that there was a deep hatred between them, but now, the higher-ups didn't allow him to touch Lin Yi. How could he accept that? However, Si Haishao had never been a person who knew his place. Since he had made up his mind to deal with Lin Yi, then no one could stop him. Even if he didn't dare to make a move openly because of the mysterious man's despotic power, if he only wanted to sow discord in the dark, there shouldn't be any risk in letting someone else do it for him. Lin Yi didn't have many enemies in Middle Island, but in North Island he definitely had a lot of enemies. Even the mysterious man couldn't stop these people from trying to kill him. His hard work paid off. As soon as Si Haishao returned to the North Island, he found a godsend opportunity. The North Island was now full of wanted posters, and the image of Wu Fuling was depicted on them. Wonderful, really wonderful. Just when I was about to doze off, someone came to give me a pillow. This time, it's Lin Yi who's courting death. Then, don't blame me for adding fuel to the fire. Who asked you to be so inhumane and make enemies everywhere, he? Si Haishao was instantly overjoyed. Wu Fuling had a brand new image, and probably no one in North Island knew that this was Lin Yi's disguise. As long as this news was spread outside without a trace, when Lin Yi came back, even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Even the mysterious man couldn't blame it on Si Haishao. Si Haishao immediately took the arrest warrant with a big smile and read it carefully. After understanding the cause and effect, he couldn't help but laugh even more happily. In North Island, only Law Enforcement Hall was qualified to issue arrest warrants. And this time Wu Fuling was wanted for killing Su Zhaohu, a disciple of Rising Sky Pavilion. Si Haishao didn't say anything. After deliberately hiding it from others, he went straight to Law Enforcement Hall. Nowadays, the Central Chamber of Commerce had become famous on all the major islands of Heaven's Stage, and its momentum was so great that it was almost as powerful as top chambers of commerce, such as Five Elements Commerce and Hong Chamber of Commerce. As the manager of North Island's branch on the surface, Si Haishao was also considered a top figure in North Island. When he came to Law Enforcement Hall, a place with strict hierarchy, naturally, someone came to receive him. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4162. However, due to his drunken teasing of Shangguan Laner and Ning Xuefei, even if Si Haishao wasn't directly blacklisted by the three great pavilions, he was still very unpopular. Normally, it should have been the higher-ups of the Law Enforcement Hall who came out to receive him. But this time it was just an ordinary law enforcement envoy. This law enforcer was none other than Niu Chong. Back then, his sworn brother Ma Jian had been imprisoned for abusing his position to avenge a personal grudge. Now he had been tortured to death. However, he had managed to escape this calamity and was not implicated. This time, the case of Wu Fuling was under his charge. So it's Shopkeeper C of the Central Chamber of Commerce. It's an honor to meet you. I am Law Enforcement Envoy Niu Chong. Niu Chong recognized Si Haishao at a glance and hurriedly greeted him. His backer Su Lingchong was missing, and his sworn brother Ma Jian was imprisoned and killed. During this period of time, He had been living with his tail between his legs, not daring to offend anyone. He was afraid that he would follow in Ma Jian's footsteps. Now it was rare to see a powerful figure. Even if it was Si Haishao, who was not favored by the three great pavilions, he had to find an opportunity to curry favor. Who knows? He might have another way out in the future. Oh, it's law enforcement envoy Niu. I heard that you're handling Wu Fuling Yi's case? Si Haishao looked him up and down and asked, That's right, it's me. May I know what advice does shopkeeper Si have? Niu Chang nodded and replied calmly, It can't be said to be advice, but I have a lead on that Wu Fuling Yi. Si Haishao smiled mysteriously. Really? Niu Chang's eyes suddenly lit up. The arrest warrant had been issued for some time, but there was still no news. It was as if Wu Fuling Yi did not exist. He was worried about this matter, but he did not expect Si Haishao to actually come to him with information. Coming here specifically to deal with Lin Yi, Si Haishao did not hide anything and told him what he found on Central Island, making Niu Chang burst with joy. So Wu Fuling Yi is Lin Yi in disguise. That's great. I'll apply for manpower from the higher-ups right away to arrest and bring him to justice. Niu Chang could not contain his excitement as he said, To put it bluntly, Ma Jian's death was caused by Lin Yi. Now that he had this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he could avenge his sworn brother's death, and at the same time, he could use this opportunity to claim credit from one of the most powerful figures in Soaring Sky Pavilion. This was killing two birds with one stone. Don't worry. Right now, Lin Yi is still in Middle Island and hasn't returned. Don't let out any news so that he can make preparations. This is a rare opportunity. We must make it an ironclad case. Kill him in one move and don't give him any chance to turn things around. Si Haishao reminded from the side. An ironclad case? Hearing that, Niu Chang's expression froze slightly, and he said awkwardly, That's a little difficult. He killed Su Zhaohu in the boundary of Hutsai Tianwu Mountain, which is not within the scope of the North Island. Strictly speaking, I've overstepped my authority by issuing an arrest warrant for him, and it's all because of Brother Su. The others turned a blind eye and didn't ask about it. Brother Su? Who's that? Si Haishao couldn't help but be stunned. It's Su Zhaoha, the most popular young genius disciple in Soaring Sky Pavilion, who is about to be accepted by Pavilion Master Shangguan. Originally, his cousin Su Zhaohu was killed in the North Island. Normal procedures wouldn't have opened a case. It was because of him that I took this task, Niu Chang explained. Now that Su Lingchong was missing, he was in a hurry to find a new backer. Coincidentally, he met a genius like Su Zhaoha, who had a promising future. Naturally, he would seize the opportunity to curry favor. Once he did this task well, in the future, he would be able to get in touch with Su Zhaoha. Everyone knew about the relationship between the hall master of the law enforcement hall, Gong Yangjie, and Shangguan Tianhua. Furthermore, Su Zhaoha was Shangguan Tianhua's disciple, and once he succeeded in becoming Shangguan Tianhua's disciple, he and Gong Yangjie would become fellow disciples. If Niu Chang was able to climb up to such a powerful backer, it would definitely be a great benefit to him. So, the arrest warrant for Wu Fuling Yi is just to sell a favor, and this matter really can't be settled? Si Haishao couldn't help but frown. Exactly. If we have to do it by force, I'm afraid it'll be difficult. The only thing I can do now is to first capture Lin Yi and then let the higher-ups decide, Niu Chang said helplessly. When he thought of Lin Yi, he couldn't help but think of his close brother Ma Jian. Ma Jian died tragically because he wanted to deal with Lin Yi. If he used public office to take revenge, he was afraid that he would follow in Ma Jian's footsteps, and the consequences would be unimaginable. In that case, why don't we simply not go through the official channel? There are too many restrictions, and I heard that Shanghai Tianhua is good to Lin Yi. If it really gets out of hand, even if we capture Lin Yi, we won't be able to kill him. It's safer to go through private channels. Si Haishao said while rolling his eyes. Private channels? What do you mean? Niu Chang was confused. Isn't it simple? Si Haishao looked at him and thought that this person was really stupid. He patiently reminded, "Why did you do this case? Isn't it just to sell a favor to Su Zhaohe? If you tell him about Lin Yi's identity, what do you think he will do? Brother Su will definitely make a move on Lin Yi. He's currently at the peak of his power, and Lin Yi killed his cousin. How can he tolerate it? Even if he wants to swallow it, when the news gets out, others will definitely say that he's weak. It might even affect his apprenticeship. If that happens, he won't be able to not settle things with Lin Yi." Niu Chang's eyes suddenly lit up as he said excitedly, "So, you tell him the information and bring him to Lin Yi. All you need to do now is to watch the show. For Su Zhaohe to be chosen by someone like Shanghai Tianhua, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's the strongest foundation establishment expert. At that time, he'll definitely be able to kill Lin Yi easily." Si Haishao laughed sinisterly. In his eyes, Su Zhaohe had already become a sharp knife, and it just so happened to be aimed at Lin Yi. The only thing he had to do now was to encourage Niu Chang to move Su Zhaohe's blade closer to Lin Yi's neck. That was all. Unfortunately, he still didn't know Lin Yi's strength. He took it for granted that Lin Yi was definitely still in the foundation establishment realm. Back then, Wei Xinjin was injured because he was sneak attacked by Lin Yi from behind. That didn't count all. Little did he know that Lin Yi was an extraordinary person. How could he be judged by common sense? Su Zhaohe was the so-called strongest foundation establishment expert's blade. Even if Lin Yi took the initiative to approach, he still wouldn't be able to cut it. Good idea. Manager C is indeed brilliant. Niu Chang nodded repeatedly as he listened. This way, he wouldn't have to risk breaking the rules, and at the same time he could curry favor with Su Zhaohe. Moreover, he could take the opportunity to kill Lin Yi. It was simply killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Chapter 4163. This time he chose to return to the North Island by Flying Spirit Beast. Compared with the land and sea routes, Flying Spirit Beast was obviously much faster, but at the cost of more risks. Crossing the vast sea, not only did he have to be on guard against the fierce birds in the sky at all times, but he also had to be careful of sneak attacks from sea beasts. In addition, the journey was long, and ordinary Flying Spirit Beasts could not sustain such a high-intensity long-distance flight. 60 to 60% of them died halfway. Therefore, even if most people chose to ride Flying Spirit Beasts, they did not dare to cross the vast sea. Instead, they avoided the sea and took a detour along the land route to ensure their safety. However, this time, Lin Yi rode the will of Heaven's exclusive mount, so he had no such concerns. Not only were the Flying Spirit Beasts terrifyingly powerful, but the special symbol on their bodies, especially the dazzling words, "Island, Master Pavilion of Middle Island," was enough to scare off 99% of cultivators and spirit beasts. If they attacked it, it was equivalent to going against the Island, Master Pavilion of Middle Island. Not to mention cultivators, even spirit beasts did not have the guts to do so. Their IQ was not much lower than that of humans. Even if the vast sea had never been conquered by humans, they still knew what the Island Master Pavilion of Middle Island represented. There was no wind and no waves along the way. After only 2 days and nights, with the extraordinary speed of the Flying Spirit Beast, the will of Heaven, Lin Yi returned to the familiar North Island area. Watching the Flying Spirit Beast leave, Lin Yi had just returned to the welcome pavilion. Before, he had time to say a few words to Senior Brother Kubai and the others. A big event happened. Su Zhaohe and Niu Chang came to the door. It was rumored that Su Zhaohe's apprentice to Shanghai Tianhua was a foregone conclusion. Therefore, Su Zhaohe's status in the 3 pavilions of the North Island was like the sun at noon. As soon as he appeared, he attracted a large number of new disciples in the welcome pavilion. You're Lin Yi? After hiding like a tortoise for so long, you're finally willing to come back. It just so happens that I want to challenge you to a battle in front of everyone. Do you dare to accept? Su Zhaohe said in a clear voice with a disdainful expression. Lin Yi didn't know that he was also wanted on the wanted list in the North Island. When he suddenly encountered such a thing, he was totally confused. Looking at this man's broad face, he had his own aura and seemed to be a big shot. Who are you? Lin Yi couldn't help but frown and ask casually, Holy shit! As soon as Lin Yi said this, the audience suddenly burst into an uproar. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. Nowadays, who in the 3 pavilions of the North Island did not know Su Zhaohe? Did this guy really not know her, or was he pretending not to know her? The group of new disciples in the Welcome Pavilion could not help but look at each other. This guy had disappeared for so long. They didn't expect that as soon as he came back, he would habitually show off again. Everyone was just watching the show, but Su Zhaohe's face was flushed at the moment. During this period, he had long been used to being surrounded by stars. When had he ever been looked down upon like this in front of him? Moreover, the other party was just a disciple of the Welcome Pavilion. Under normal circumstances, he would not even bother to look at him. I am Su Zhaohe of Rising Sky Pavilion. Under everyone's gaze, Su Zhaohe replied with a stiff expression and gritted teeth. Su Zhaohe. Lin raised his eyebrows slightly. Why did this guy suddenly come to him? Then he said, I don't think I've seen you before. Why did you challenge me? Humph, you haven't seen me before, but you've seen my cousin Su Zhaohe, right? Lin Yi? Oh no, or should I call you Lin Yi? Su Zhaohe sneered and stared at him. When Lin Yi heard this, he immediately understood. However, at the same time he was surprised. When he killed Su Zhaohe, he did look like Wu Fu Ling Yi. However, it happened in a place like Hutsai Tianwu Mountain, where no one went. How did it get exposed? At that time, other than Su Zhaohe and Qin Muzhuan, who were already dead, there were only Huang Xiaotao and Song Jima left. However, Lin Yi's eyes had always been very accurate. He believed that the 2 of them would not betray him. Could it be that intermediate golden elixir stage expert? Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched. Although that guy did not see the whole process, after thinking about it, it was very likely that he had provided the clue. However, as for the identity of this person, Lin Yi had no way of knowing. He could only wait for the next time they met again. Only then would he have the opportunity to take revenge for what happened last time. He only has himself to blame. In a place like Hutsai Tianwu Mountain, since he wanted to rob people's things, he naturally had to be prepared to die. Lin Yi replied indifferently. The fact that he was Wu Fu Ling Yi could be found out as long as he went to Middle Island to investigate. There was no way to deny it. Moreover, he had never thought of denying it. Only has himself to blame? Humph, look at you. You seem to be very proud of yourself. Now that my cousin is a dead man, whether it is right or wrong, your words have the final say. There is no way to prove it. Su Zhaohe stared coldly at Lin Yi and said, Since you are talking to me about being prepared, then I will also talk to you about being prepared to die. Since you have the guts to kill people, you naturally have to be prepared to die. What do you say? So, you're determined to kill me? Lin Yi said indifferently. He turned his head and glanced around. At this time, the scene of hostility had attracted more and more onlookers. Even Lin Yi saw the figure of Shanghai Laner in the distance. She was also rushing over here. What? Are you afraid? You don't dare to accept the challenge? Su Zhaohe saw this and immediately laughed contemptuously. He said, disdainfully and mockingly, You are a disciple of the Welcome Pavilion. It doesn't matter if you refuse. It is nothing more than a loss of face. In the end, you can still keep your worthless life. That's good. It saves me the reputation of bullying newcomers. Without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, the surrounding people were already pointing at him. Although in terms of reputation and strength, they were not on the same level. Lin Yi was also a famous newcomer king in the Welcome Pavilion. If he admitted defeat in front of him, his reputation would be completely ruined. This time Lin Yi is finished. Senior brother Su Zhaohe is the strongest expert in the foundation establishment stage. I heard that he can even fight against a golden core stage expert. Yeah, I heard that Lin Yi is a pretentious person. I just don't know if he will be hot-headed and die. The people nearby suddenly began to discuss. However, Lin Yi never cared about these things. He squinted his eyes and looked at Su Zhaohe. The corner of his mouth slightly curved into a playful smile. Foundation establishment stage? With his current strength, if he really wanted to kill this powerful Su Zhaohe, it would be absolutely easy and pleasant. The only thing he needed to worry about was how to deal with the aftermath after he killed the other party. All right, since you have such a strong request, then I will reluctantly fulfill your wish. Lin Yi immediately nodded. Anyway, there were so many people watching. Since it was the other party who took the initiative to challenge a newcomer like him, it was the other party who was in the wrong. Even if he was killed, it should not be Lin Yi's fault. R 1152. Chapter 4164. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this. No matter how they looked at it, they didn't think that Lin Yi would be Su Zhaohe's opponent. Moreover, as a newcomer, it wasn't too shameful for him to refuse the challenge. They didn't expect this guy to agree. Asking Su Zhaohe, the strongest foundation establishment expert, to fight in the arena was clearly courting death. Lin Yi, the pretentious leader, had never died before. Very well, in 5 days, I'll see you in the North Island arena. Su Zhaohe was overjoyed. In fact, what he was most afraid of this time was that Lin Yi would refuse. If that happened, his trip would be in vain. He didn't expect this guy to really agree. He was really reckless. The so-called North Island Arena was a place specially set up by the 3 pavilions of the North Island to prevent disciples from fighting privately. It was specially designed for people to fight and compare skills. The purpose was to let them speak with their strength and solve their conflicts fairly. In this way, to a certain extent, dirty tricks could be avoided and the conflict could be turned into an open one and controlled within a controllable range. Only when both sides agreed could they make an appointment to fight. Once on the arena, no one could blame the other for life or death. If one felt that he was not strong enough, he could refuse in person. At most, it would be a loss of face, but at least his life wouldn't be in danger. As you wish. Lin Yi said with a light smile. Then you're waiting to die. Su Zhaohe looked at Lin Yi's indifferent and pretentious look and couldn't help but feel disgusted. In his opinion, only a strong person like him could really stay calm in the face of danger. As for trash like Lin Yi, he only knew how to pretend. Pretend my ass. Su Zhaohe left with Niu Chang and the others, and the attracted onlookers, after pointing at Lin Yi and discussing, also dispersed, leaving only Lin Yi and his people. Junior brother Lin, Su Zhaohe is recognized as the strongest foundation establishment disciple in our 3 pavilions. I heard that he can even fight with masters in the gold core stage. This is really not a joke. How could you agree? After not seeing each other for a long time, the bitter senior brother didn't have the time to exchange pleasantries with Lin Yi and asked worriedly, "Boss, that Su Zhaohe has quite the reputation. For him to have such a great reputation, his strength is certainly not weak. Otherwise, Pavilion Master Shangguan wouldn't have taken a fancy to him. This battle will be quite dangerous." Xiao Ran was also feeling somewhat worried. As for Qiao Hongkai, he had always idolized Lin the most, but he didn't say anything this time. Instead, he exchanged a glance with Li Zhengming. His eyes were also filled with worry. In the face of everyone's worries and complaints, Lin, he couldn't help but feel a surge of warmth in his heart. After staying in Zhongdao for more than a month, he felt a little strange when he returned to the 3 pavilions of North Island. But now he instantly found the feeling of home. We've known each other for so long. When have you ever seen me do something I'm not confident in. You'll know when the time comes. Lin Yi comforted them with a smile. The bitter senior brothers still wanted to say something, but they were interrupted by Laner, who suddenly came over. Junior brother, when did you come back? Why didn't you find me? Just now. I didn't have time to rest, and then I got involved in this. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly and held the small curly bear as usual. Then he asked, by the way, where's Ning Xuefei? Did she go back to West Island? Yes. She's the little princess of West Island. She can't come out to play for too long. She went back more than half a month ago. Laner stuck out her tongue, then paused and said nervously, Junior brother, do you really decide to fight with that guy? Yes, since I've accepted the challenge in person. I naturally have to fight in this arena. I can't break my promise and stand him up in front of so many people. Lin Yi smiled faintly. But my grandfather once said that the guy is one of the best among the disciples of the 3 pavilions in terms of strength and potential. He's not simple. Laner had always been carefree, but this time she worried about Lin Yi, which was rare. Oh, even Pavilion Master Shangguan said so. Then I should have a good fight with him. Lin Yi's interest was piqued. Given Shangguan Tianhua's experience, someone who could receive such an evaluation from him couldn't possibly be some ordinary person with no power but fame. Oh, this is not a martial arts competition, but a life-and-death battle. If you're not careful, you'll really die. Junior brother, why are you still so careless? Laner stomped her feet in exasperation. Suddenly, she rolled her eyes and said, Forget it. I'll go talk to grandfather about this. With that, without waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Shanghai Laner directly turned and left. She did not even care about the little curly bear and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Returning to Hualan residence, Shanghai Laner went straight to the study. Seeing Shanghai Tianhua practicing calligraphy, she immediately rolled up her sleeves and took the initiative to help him grind. Say it, what's the matter? Shanghai Tianhua smiled without raising his head. The little girl took the initiative to help him grind. It was a rare opportunity for him to enjoy it once a year. Since she was so attentive for no reason, she must have a request. Hee, grandfather, are you going to accept a disciple recently? Is he called Su Zhaohe or something? Shanghai Laner giggled. She had never paid much attention to the outside world, but recently the rumors of Su Zhaohe becoming a disciple had become more and more intense. It was difficult for her not to hear about it. Oh, even little Lan, you've heard the rumors outside? Shanghai Tianhua was a little surprised. He then said non-committally, It's just a rumor. I don't admit it, but I don't deny it either. What is this? Grandpa is playing with words again, cloudy and misty. Shanghai Laner pouted and said directly, That person called Su Zhaohe just went to the welcome pavilion to challenge little junior brother. Grandfather, don't you think you should do something about it? Linny? Shanghai Tianhua stopped writing and raised his head in surprise. Su Zhaohe went to challenge Lin Yi? Did Lin Yi agree? I don't know what little junior brother was thinking, but he actually agreed. Shanghai Laner curled her lips helplessly. Hee, this little guy is a little interesting. Shanghai Tianhua immediately laughed. It's interesting. Su Zhaohe is simply bullying the weak. He's really shameless. Grandfather should have given him a good scolding, then made him apologize to junior brother and cancel the challenge. Shangguan Lan said angrily, That won't do. The challenge is between the two of them. Others can't intervene. Even if I'm the pavilion master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion and the North Island Master Pavilion Elder, I can't take the lead to break this rule. Since Lin Yi has agreed to the challenge, then he should prepare well. Shanghai Tianhua shook his head and said slowly, How can this be? Grandfather, don't you think this kind of challenge is not fair at all? Shanghai Laner said angrily after listening. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4165. Little Lon, the 3 pavilions of the North Island set the rules for the duel to be fair. If you think it's unfair, you can refuse. Since Lin Yi dared to nod and agree, then this duel is fair to him. Even if he loses, even if he pays with his life, he can't use this as an excuse for failure, Shanghai Tianhua said slowly. I don't care about this. Su Zhaohe bullied little junior brother. That's wrong. Grandpa, you're bad. You must have a way. You just don't want to help me. Shanghai Laner stomped her feet, turned around and left angrily, looking at Shanghai Laner's back as she left. Shanghai Tianhua stroked his beard helplessly. If he really wanted to stop this duel, he could just say something casually. The reason why he didn't agree to Shanghai Laner's request was not because he didn't want to break the rules, but because he wanted to take the opportunity to see Lin Yi's potential. Su Zhaohe was a good whetstone for Lin Yi at this stage. If Lin Yi didn't even have this confidence and rashly accepted the duel, then he wasn't worthy of Little Lon. In the Chamber of Commerce Tea House in the North Island, Nantian Ba, Nantian Gate, and Kong Mingming gathered together to welcome Si Haishao, who had just returned from Middle Island. In terms of seniority, the Nantian brothers sat at the top of the table closest to Si Haishao, followed by Morong Zhen and Zhong Pingliang. As for Kong Xiaoming, he could only sit at the very end. He was almost pushed to the door. It couldn't be helped. No matter how much Su Lingqiong valued him, it was all in the past. This was Si Haishao's circle. Everything revolved around Si Haishao. He, Kong Xiaoming, hadn't made any contributions in Si Haishao's eyes. Oh, by the way, Kong Mingming, I heard that you are the last disciple of Xianqin. Si Haishao noticed Kong Ming's unnatural expression and suddenly thought of ancestor Xianqin of Middle Island. That's right. Manager Si, how did you know? Kong Mingming was stunned. Although the matters of the mortal world were not secrets, and there was nothing that could not be seen. Pin Liang, who was present at the scene, knew all about it, but the kid wouldn't be so talkative as to secretly report this to Si Haishao, would he? It was completely worthless. So it really is such a coincidence. To tell you the truth, your master, Xianqin, is currently on the Middle Island. Furthermore, he has joined the center with my old friend, Nan Tian. He's on the same side. He even asked me to take care of you before he came back, Si Haishao said with a smile. Master is on Middle Island. He even joined the center. That's great. Kong Xiaoming was overjoyed. To be honest, with his selfish nature, normally he would not care about how the ancestor of the Xianqin world was doing. However, when he suddenly heard about the ancestor of the Xianqin world's whereabouts, he was delighted. There was no other reason. Since the ancestor of the Xianqin world could follow a big shot like Nantian Aurora, it meant that he should be doing well now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the face to ask Si Haishao. For Kong Mingming, this was the sign of him finding a new backer. Although Si Haishao didn't say anything more for the time being, his attitude now made Kong Mingming feel different. But it was already enough to make Xiaoming feel different. Even if his seat didn't change, Xiaoming's back was much straighter and he had more confidence. At least when he looked at Morong Zhen and Pin Liang, he was no longer as inferior as before. A while ago on Middle Island, your master, my old friend Nantian and a few others, we planned to have the Snow Sword faction deal with Lin Yi. We were about to succeed, but we didn't expect to fail at the last moment. It's such a pity just thinking about it. Si Haishao sighed, but then he became spirited again and said, Luckily, Lin Yi asked for it himself and made countless enemies. I thought no one could deal with him, but I didn't expect Su Zhaohe to be waiting for him when he came back. With Su Zhaohe's strength, the arranged battle in 5 days will be Lin Yi's death. He brought this upon himself. Ha ha ha! I've sparred with Su Zhaohe once. This person is indeed unfathomable. No one in the foundation establishment stage is his match. Lin Yi has really kicked an iron plate this time. Nan Tian men nodded in agreement. He had occupied the position of the first senior brother in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion for several years, so he was well aware of the strength of the disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. He was the one who had the most right to speak about Su Zhaohe's strength. However, Lin Yi has always been strange. I think we should find a chance to warn Su Zhaohe. This time, it's Lin Yi who asked for it himself. It's a heaven-sent chance to kill him fair and square. Don't fail miserably, Kong Mingming reminded. If it was in the past, you wouldn't have the right to say this, and no one would take it to heart. However, this time, Si Haishao nodded. That's right. That kid does have some skills. In less than a month, he was able to gain a firm foothold in Middle Island, which is filled with experts, and make a name for himself. He's definitely not someone that can be underestimated. If Su Zhaohe underestimates him and doesn't put him in his eyes, there might really be a possibility of him failing miserably. Si Haishao agreed. Since Si Haishao had already said so, even if Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate didn't agree, they wouldn't say anything against it. They immediately went to find Su Zhaohe. Regarding the sudden visit of Si Haishao and his group, even Su Zhaohe, who claimed to be a prospective disciple of Shanghai Tianhua, took the initiative to greet them. After all, among them were Si Haishao, the manager of the North Island of the Chamber of Commerce, and Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate. For any disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, their status was not light. Why have you come to find me? Su Zhaohe looked around at the crowd and slowly asked. 5 days from now, it will be the day of the battle between you and Lin Yi. We have come here specifically to warn you. Don't underestimate that kid, just because he's a newcomer. Si Haishao sternly said. In one move, he killed Nan Tianyong, who was at the peak of the late Foundation establishment realm. Not long ago, he heavily injured a core disciple of the Snow Sword sect, Wei Xinjin, whose strength was at the early gold core stage. Although it was a sneak attack, you still can't let your guard down. Thank you for the reminder. However, even if you didn't advise me, I still wouldn't underestimate my opponent. Su Zhaohe smiled and lightly asked, That's right, that Lin Yi, I've heard rumors about him before. He's the #1 newcomer of your welcoming pavilion. I heard that you guys even gave him a nickname, Pretentious Leader? Chapter 4166. It doesn't matter. As long as you have the strength, it doesn't matter if you show off. Otherwise, you would be a real idiot. Do you know that when I was in the welcoming pavilion, I was also recognized as the #1 newcomer? Some people even called me the Pretentious Leader. As for seriously injuring an early-stage Golden Core Master, I did it too, but he did it from the back while I faced him head-on. Su Zhaohe's words revealed an unconcealable pride. To be honest, he hadn't been in the Soaring Pavilion for a long time, and his experience was still shallow. It was precisely because of these outstanding achievements that he was crowned as a genius and received the attention of a top boss like Shanghai Tianhua. These were all the reasons he was proud of. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Si Haishao, the outsider, Kong Mingming, Morongzhen, and Zhong Pingliang were not elders of the 3 great pavilions. Naturally, they didn't know these old stories. Only the Nantian brothers, Nantian Ba, and Nantian Gate knew something about it. However, although he was shocked, Zhong Pingliang still didn't think much of it. Looking at Su Zhaohe's arrogant face, as if Boss Lin Yi was nothing compared to him, he didn't know that this was just a lie. Even if you, Su Zhaohe, really did beat up an early-stage Golden Core Master, that was after you joined the Soaring Pavilion, right? Boss Lin was still a newbie who hadn't been promoted yet. How could you compare? If his strength had already reached such an astonishing level when he was still in the welcoming pavilion, able to challenge an expert in the beginning stage of the Golden Elixir realm, then Shengguan Tianhua would probably have rushed to take him in. Why would he wait until now? And you still don't know, right? Ha ha ha, actually, I have successfully formed my Golden Core and am an early-stage Golden Core Master. Su Zhaohe laughed proudly. I have been hiding my strength and didn't reveal it to the public. I wanted to find a chance to show my strength and become a disciple of Pavilion Master Shangguan. That's great. Then the situation is really set this time. We've been worrying too much. Si Haishao and the others' eyes lit up, while Pinliang's expression changed. Things weren't looking good. From everyone's point of view, if Su Zhaohao was only at the foundation establishment great perfection, then with Lin Yi's devilishness, there might really be a possibility of failure. However, Su Zhaohao was now an early-stage golden core expert. No matter how heaven-defying Lin Yi was, it was impossible for him to be his opponent. What kind of person was Su Zhaohao? He was someone who could enter the eyes of Shanghai Tianhua. He was a genius disciple who could challenge those of a higher level than him. How could an ordinary expert of the same level compare to him? Haha, Lin Yi had really kicked an iron plate this time. He had set himself up to be a stepping stone for others to acknowledge him as his master. He really couldn't stop himself from courting death. Si Haishao and the others immediately dispersed happily. On the other side, Shanghai Laner came out of Hualan residence with a gloomy expression and found the welcoming pavilion. Chapter 4167. What's the matter? Meng Tong looked at them coldly. Maybe it was a psychological effect, or maybe it was the truth. But his temperament had become even weirder than before. If the feeling he gave people before was that he was reborn, then after such a long time, it was as if his personality had started to change. Zhong Pingliang couldn't help but twitch when he saw this. He mumbled to himself. He heard from Su Lingchong a long time ago that this guy ate the Meridian Heart-shattering pill. Could it be that the Meridian Heart-shattering pill was really that terrifying? It could actually make such an unsophisticated idiot become so twisted, sending chills down one's spine? Not only him, but Kong Mingming and Morong Jin couldn't help but look at each other. Right now, they couldn't see through Meng Tong's strength at all. They only felt that this guy was unfathomable and extremely dangerous. It's nothing, actually. You should have heard the news that Lin Yi is going to fight Su Zhaohao, right? Kong Ming calmed himself down. So what? Meng Tong's expression didn't change at all. The opponent is Su Zhaohao. Don't you think that Lin Yi is dead for sure this time? Kong Ming said excitedly, we just got some insider news. Su Zhaohao's strength isn't what everyone thinks it is, but the early stage of Golden Core. This time, Lin Yi won't be able to survive even if he had 10 lives. Waha! Early stage of Golden Core? Meng Tong's expression changed slightly, but quickly returned to normal. No one could tell what he was thinking. So this time Lin Yi is dead for sure. At that time, the group of people gathered under him will definitely scatter. We have to prepare early and take over his fence-sitters. When there are people under him, we can be more confident in the future, Kong Ming suggested with his eyes shining. That's right. This is the best chance to win people's hearts. Although they still have people like Ku Bai, Xiaoran, and Xiao Hongkai on their side, Lin Yi is their backbone. Once he dies, people's hearts will definitely waver. This is a rare opportunity. Otherwise, if we wait until Ku Bai calms them down, it won't be easy for us to poach them, Morong Zhen agreed. If you want to poach me, go ahead. I'm not interested. Meng Tong was still expressionless. He had experienced so many setbacks and tribulations. In particular, he was tortured by the Meridian Heart-shattering pill twice a day. His level was no longer something that Kong Ming could compare with. Only people like Kong Ming would never forget about those fence-sitters, treating them as tools to achieve their ambitions. But now, Meng Tong didn't care about them at all. Ugh. Kong Ming froze. The reason why he invited Meng Tong was because of his influence among the Blue Cloud Pavilion's newcomers. Even if Lin Yi always stepped on him, he should still be a threat to the normal Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers. But to the average Clear Cloud Pavilion's new disciples, it should still have some degree of deterrence. But in the end, this guy actually said he wasn't interested. If this was in the past, Kong Ming would have scolded him a long time ago. But now he couldn't see through Meng Tong at all. Even if he was dissatisfied, he could only hold it in for the time being. Why don't I give it a try? Pin Liang was the one who volunteered. I can try to get Li Jingming on our side. If I can get him to join us, I'll be able to get him to join us. I'm sure it'll be a great help to the other Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers. That's true, but that Li Jingming is different from the other newcomers. He's a determined person. He's not that easy to convince. I've talked to him a few times already, but nothing worked. Murong Zhen said bitterly. She had always been confident in her honey trap, but it didn't work on Lin Yi or Li Jingming. It was a huge blow to her. If it weren't for Si Haishao, she would have suspected that she'd become an old woman. That's probably because he's too wary of you. Since Pin Liang volunteered, why don't you give it a try? Who knows? There might be unexpected results. Kong Ming nodded. But you don't have to rush to rope him in. You just need to get close to him and give him a hint. He's a smart man. I'm sure he'll know what to do when Lin Yi dies. I understand. Pin Liang smiled to himself and left the room. Volunteering to turn Li Jingming against him was, of course, just an excuse. The real purpose was to inform Lin Yi of Su Zhaoha's identity. Su Zhaoha was an early-stage Golden Core practitioner, and this was a huge hidden danger. If Lin Yi didn't know about this and started a war, he'd be at a huge disadvantage. At this critical moment, Lin Yi was the focus of all 3 pavilions. His every move was being watched. If Pin Liang wanted to inform him, he had to use this roundabout method. What are you doing here? Li Jingming was surprised that Pin Liang would come knocking on his door. He didn't know that Pin Liang was like him, a spy planted by Lin Yi. No way. Bro Li is a smart man. Can't you guess why I'm here? Pin Liang smiled. There's no point in talking. Please go back. Li Jingming's face darkened. He didn't mind going back to being a spy, but only if Lin Yi said so. Otherwise, he didn't want to have anything to do with these people. Instead of wasting time with them, he'd rather use it to train. Don't worry, Li Bro, you know about the fight between Lin Yi and Su Zhaoha, right? If you think that your boss can win this time, I'll give you a secret so you can give up. Zhong Pingliang said mysteriously. What is it? Li Jingming glanced at him. Su Zhaoha isn't a complete foundation establishment like you think he is. He's a real early-phase Golden Core Master. Isn't this news shocking? Pin Liang smiled mysteriously. He didn't wait for Li Jingming's reply and left. Early-phase Golden Core Master. Li Jingming's heart skipped a beat. His admiration for Lin Yi was no less than anyone else's, but Lin Yi was still a newbie. Even facing Su Zhaoha, who was at the peak of Foundation establishment, was already very difficult. If the opponent was really at the early stage of Golden Core, how could he fight? But this Zhong Pingliang had never interacted with him before. Was he really just trying to convince him to surrender with this explosive piece of insider news? This kind of news should be top secret. It didn't make sense for him to know so easily. Was this person that simple? Although he was confused, Li Jingming went to find Lin Yi and told him the news. Floating astronomy. Chapter 4168. If what Zhong Pingyang said is true, boss, you really have to think about it carefully this time. A man knows when to yield and when not to. Boss, you're still a newcomer anyway. Li Jingming said hesitantly, implying that Lin Yi should take the initiative to admit defeat. In his opinion, Lin Yi had no chance of winning against Su Zhaoha, who was in the early phase of the Golden Core stage. It would be too stupid to fight to the end, knowing that he was going to die. Hee, it's okay, I already know this. Lin Yi smiled faintly. This was not a boast, but a fact. The strength that Su Zhaoha had shown on the surface was only at the level of foundation completion, and Lin Yi had been tricked at first glance. But even if Su Xiaohe could fool everyone's eyes, he wouldn't be able to fool his golden finger. After coming to Heavenly Island, although there was no way to directly see the strength of a higher level, he could easily see through opponents of the same level or lower level. There was no possibility of getting away with it. You know that the opponent is in the early phase of the golden core stage. Boss, you still? Li Jingming was stunned. He could see that Lin Yi wasn't trying to look impressive, but seemed to have the confidence to deal with it calmly. But a newcomer of the Welcome Pavilion against a master in the early phase of the golden core stage, and the opponent was a famous genius. Was this possible? You'll know when the time comes. Lin Yi smiled and patted Li Jingming's shoulder. Then he was slightly stunned as he noticed a slim figure coming from not far away, and it looked very familiar. Are you Lin Yi? The person was wearing a veil, and the voice was very familiar. It was Huang Xiaotao, who went to Mount Tianwu with him. Captain Xiaotao? Lin Yi was stunned. He never thought that Huang Xiaotao would come to find him. But thinking about it, his identity as Wu Fuling Yi was already known. So it wasn't strange for Huang Xiaotao to know about it. Senior, you really are Senior Lin Yi. That's great. Huang Xiaotao was instantly overjoyed, and she hurriedly walked quickly to stand before Lin Yi, unable to conceal her happiness. From the side, Li Jingming looked at the two of them with a strange expression. Judging from Huang Xiaotao's current attire, she should be an official disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion without a doubt. On the other hand, although his boss Lin Yi was powerful, he was only a newcomer. Yet he was being addressed as senior. No matter how he looked at it, this scene was strange. Boss, I'll go back first. Li Zhengming had a strange expression on his face. Immediately, he tactfully left. Don't call me senior. It sounds awkward. Just call me Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. This. Okay, then forgive me for being so bold, Lin. Lin Yi. Huang Xiaotao was also stunned, and then she said with some embarrassment. Previously, in her impression, Ling Yi was an extremely tyrannical existence that she could only look up to. She did not expect him to be a newcomer in the welcoming pavilion, and even a junior brother of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. When she first heard the news, she didn't believe it. Now that she saw it with her own eyes, she finally accepted the reality. You came this time. What's the matter? Lin Yi asked. It's actually nothing much. I just want to thank Senior. Oh no, Lin Yi, for saving my life. I also want to apologize to you, Huang Xiaotao said softly with her head lowered. Sorry? Where did this come from? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously. If you hadn't stood up for us back then, we wouldn't have been able to escape. You wouldn't have provoked Su Xiaohe, and you wouldn't have fallen into this situation. It's all because of me, Huang Xiaotao said sadly. Back then, Ling Yi had indeed displayed great strength. However, in Huang Xiaotao's heart, Su Xiaohe had always been a shadow that she couldn't get rid of. She couldn't help but worry that Lin Yi might not be Su Xiaohe's opponent. If that happened, it would be equivalent to her harming Lin Yi, and she would feel guilty for the rest of her life. Actually, you're thinking too much. Even if this didn't happen, I still wanted to kill Su Xiaohe. However, Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, Captain Xiaotao, when I heard about your experience, I already wanted to kill this person. How can a scum like him live in this world? I was just worried that I wouldn't have a chance to kill him. I didn't expect him to take the initiative to challenge me. Isn't this perfect? Hearing this, Huang Xiaotao was a little surprised. She wanted to say something, but then hesitated. You actually want to take revenge for me? As Huang Xiaotao said this, she lowered her head. Her fingers were clenched together, and she didn't know what to do. After being injured, her usually cautious and fragile heart actually trembled at this moment, as if it had been touched by something. Thinking back, when they were at Hucai Tianwu Mountain, Lin Yi killed Su Xiaohu and the others in order to protect them. After that, in order to protect them, he fought with a mysterious expert. From the aura she felt from afar, that person should be an expert of the Golden Core stage. And now he actually wanted to take the initiative to stand up for her and take revenge on Su Zhaoha. For no reason. They didn't have any contact, so why was he so good to her? Could it be that he likes me? This thought suddenly appeared, and it couldn't be stopped. In an instant, it occupied her entire mind, and it gave Huang Xiaotao a shock. She had always been very simple. Before she was injured, she had always been cultivating. After that, she was even more focused on accumulating spiritual jades to restore her appearance. She had never seriously thought about the matters of men and women, and she had always felt that love was very far away from her. Especially after she was disfigured, she felt that she could only live alone from now on. But she didn't expect that she would suddenly get to know Lin Yi. Although they had only met once before, and didn't have much interaction, it was undeniable that Lin Yi had left a very unique first impression in her heart, and it made her curious. When a woman started to have curiosity about a man, then she wouldn't be far from falling for him. Huang Xiaotao couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. This feeling of being protected and protected by a man was really good and warm. Did he really like me? Did I like him too? What's wrong with you? Lin Yi saw that Huang Xiaotao lowered her head and didn't speak for a long time, and he couldn't help but ask curiously. Ah, it's nothing. Huang Xiaotao's heart skipped a beat, as if someone had seen through her little thoughts. Fortunately, she was wearing a veil. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have seen her blushing awkwardness and embarrassment. Oh, that's good. Lin Yi looked at her strangely and shrugged. But I'm already disfigured. You don't have to be so good to me. I'm not worth it. Huang Xiaotao suddenly thought of her current situation, and her expression became downcast. Her voice trembled as she said, sadly, "Floating astronomy." Chapter 4169. What? Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. It took him a while to react. Huang Xiaotao might have thought wrongly. A woman's mind was really hard to guess. Lin Yi wanted to explain immediately. However, even through the veil, he could feel Huang Xiaotao's shyness, inferiority, and happiness at the same time. He couldn't help but hesitate. No matter how beautiful Huang Xiaotao was in the past, after she was disfigured, perhaps no man would have any thoughts about her. Since he suddenly treated her so well, it wasn't strange for her to misunderstand that he was interested in her. However, if he directly told the truth, would it hurt her heart? Although he didn't have much contact with Huang Xiaotao, and he didn't have any thoughts about her at the moment, for this pitiful but strong and kind girl, any man would probably feel pity and never have the heart to hurt her. Even if he was misunderstood, Lin Yi still couldn't bear to break Huang Xiaotao's beautiful thoughts at the moment. If he said it out, she might pretend not to care, but she would definitely be sad and embarrassed in her heart. She had already been disfigured by that scumbag Su Zhaoha. Lin Yi didn't want her to feel inferior again. Huang Xiaotao might not care about this, but if she was hurt because of him or even opened up the scar, what difference was there between him and that scumbag Su Zhaoha? Actually, Lin Yi thought about it and said in a very tactful way, "I still have a few close female confidants. Well, I heard you have a good relationship with Laner." Huang Xiaotao still lowered her head and said in a low voice, "So, I can't compare with her. When I see her, I feel inferior." Ah? Lin Yi was stunned again. He didn't expect Huang Xiaotao to pay so much attention to him. She should have known that he was Wu Fu Ling Yi not long ago, but she already knew this. However, listening to Huang Xiaotao's tone, she didn't seem to care about whether he had a close female confidant or not. However, Heaven Stage Island had always maintained its ancient customs. Polygamy and the like had always been very common. As a native, it seemed quite normal that Huang Xiaotao didn't resist it. What made Lin Yi helpless was that the other party's answer was obviously irrelevant. She didn't seem to understand the main point of this matter at all. Instead, she changed the topic to Shangguan Laner. Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh again. A woman's mind was really hard to guess. Forget it, "Let me see your face," Lin Yi said. Although he didn't know whether to laugh or cry, he could still see that Huang Xiaotao's appearance was the biggest knot in her heart. If he didn't help her solve it, she would still feel inferior in the end. Especially when she saw a beauty like Shangguan Laner, it would touch her fragile nerves and remind her of herself, who was once equally beautiful. But if it recovers, then Huang Xiaotao would naturally regain her confidence. At that time, she would once again be the center of attention and wouldn't care whether Lin Yi liked her or not. Don't look. Huang Xiaotao was shocked. She covered her veil and subconsciously took a step back. She didn't have the domineering and resolute attitude of the trial team leader when she was at Mount Tianwu. Instead, she became more and more bashful. "Don't be afraid, I'll just look." Lin Yi comforted her. "No, don't." Huang Xiaotao shook her head repeatedly. She didn't want anyone to see her ugly appearance, let alone a man like Lin Yi who left a good impression on her. She didn't want her image to appear in Lin Yi's heart. Even the slightest flaw was something all women had in common. However, Lin Yi didn't give her a chance to refuse. He took a step forward while she was unprepared and pulled off her veil. Then he saw the horrifying scar that covered almost half of her face like a centipede and smiled. Seeing Lin Yi smile, Huang Xiaotao was instantly filled with sorrow. Her eyes turned red, and she started crying. You really laughed at me. I knew it. After you saw my appearance, you wouldn't like me anymore. I really thought too highly of myself." Huang Xiaotao sobbed sorrowfully. Hearing this, Lin Yi was even more stunned and smiled bitterly. He thought to himself that Huang Xiaotao was really too fragile and sensitive when it came to this matter. No matter what happened, she would unconsciously think in the direction of inferiority. This had already become a knot in her heart. "You're really thinking too much. I won't laugh at you, I definitely won't," Lin Yi promised with a straight face. He then paused and said, "Wait for me for a moment." "Really?" Huang Xiaotao blinked her tear-stained eyes. She covered her face tightly with her hands, not letting Lin Yi see it. It was a pity that the centipede-like scar was useless no matter how hard she tried to cover it. Lin Yi nodded affirmatively. He rummaged through the space in the jade pendant and finally found a bottle of special edition injury medicine. This was a premium edition injury medicine that House Yu had gotten from the Commonwealth's auction. Wu Qintian had packed it all up and stuffed it into Lin Yi's sky-class island. He thought that he wouldn't need it anymore, but he didn't think that it would actually come in handy. This medicine had miraculous effects on old wounds. Most importantly, it could remove scars. Of course, with Lin Yi's strength, he could actually recover Huang Xiaotao's appearance with the art of dragon mastery alone, even without this medicine. However, that would require her to be disfigured again in order to recover. That was because this was an old injury that she had suffered many years ago and had long since recovered. It was just an ugly and horrifying scar that was left behind. If she directly healed it like this, it would be impossible to heal the injury. If she were to forcefully disfigure her face again in order to recover her appearance, it would be very painful. Huang Xiaotao might not mind doing it herself, but since there was a better way, Lin Yi naturally didn't want her to suffer this pain. "It's fine. It'll be fine soon," Lin Yi said as he personally applied the medicine on Huang Xiaotao's face. The feeling of skin-to-skin contact made Huang Xiaotao shocked and embarrassed. She immediately froze and didn't dare to move. Feeling Lin Yi's warm breath so close to her and looking at Lin Yi's focused expression, Huang Xiaotao knew that he didn't have any other intentions, but her heart still couldn't help but beat wildly. Her mind went wild again, and she couldn't help but fantasize how great it would be if time could stop at this moment. Chapter 4170. Looking at the hideous centipede scar gradually disappear under the effect of the top-grade injury medicine. In the end, not even a wrinkle was left. Lin Yi smiled with satisfaction and handed a mirror to Huang Xiaotao. Huang Xiaotao took the mirror from Lin Yi in a daze and finally woke up from her wild imagination. When she thought of the possible situation, her hands couldn't help but tremble. She held the mirror for a long time, not daring to look at her own face. "Don't be afraid. Take a good look at yourself now." Lin Yi smiled and encouraged her. "Okay." Huang Xiaotao nodded and took a deep breath. Finally, she mustered the courage to look at herself in the mirror. Then, in an instant, she was stunned in disbelief. Her skin was as white as jade, and her skin was as soft and smooth as a newborn baby's. Her face was pure and flawless. After being tormented for so many years, Huang Xiaotao finally saw her past self again. This was a scene that had only appeared in her dreams. Was this another dream? Huang Xiaotao subconsciously pinched her arm and felt a real pain. Her heart was suddenly filled with ecstasy. It was actually real. Smack! Huang Xiaotao suddenly hugged Lin Yi excitedly. She tiptoed and kissed him on the cheek. Unable to suppress her excitement, she said incoherently, "Did you fall in love with me because you knew that you could restore my appearance? You're really amazing." Huh. Lin Yi was speechless. His original intention was that after Huang Xiaotao restored her appearance, she would naturally regain her confidence and would not be constrained to be with him. In terms of beauty, after Huang Xiaotao restored her appearance, she was not inferior to Shanghai Laner at all. In the past, even a person like Su Zhaohe was fascinated by her and did not hesitate to use despicable means. Now, she would definitely be able to attract countless young talents to submit to her. Unexpectedly, after Huang Xiaotao was pleasantly surprised, her first reaction really made Lin Yi dumbfounded for a long time. He was at a loss for what to do. "Xiaotao, I'm only treating you as a good friend. I really don't mean anything else." Lin Yi had no choice but to bite the bullet and tell her the truth. In any case, now that she had regained her looks and confidence, she would definitely be the center of attention when she returned. Lin Yi reckoned that even if he were to tell her directly, she probably wouldn't be too upset. Upon hearing this, Huang Xiaotao was taken aback. A pair of pure and beautiful eyes stared at Lin Yi's face in astonishment. Her lips moved, but no words came out. "Xiaotao, I know you're a good girl, but I already have a lot of girlfriends." Since he'd already said it, Lin Yi decided to just say it all at once. He didn't want to leave any misunderstandings. "It's not just what you've seen and heard. I have girlfriends in Zhongdao, and not just one. So, since there are already so many, is there still a need for me?" Huang Xiaotao suddenly interrupted. Not only did her gaze not shrink back in the slightest, it became even more resolute. Uff! Lin Yi almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He suddenly didn't know what to say. How did this girl's brain work? What kind of thinking and theory was this? "Oh, I know." Huang Xiaotao suddenly patted her head. She suddenly realized and said, "You're afraid of being found out by them, so you don't dare to accept me, right?" "That's right. Shangguan Laner is such a high and mighty little princess. How could she accept a low-level blue cloud pavilion disciple like me? You're right." Lin Yi was completely defeated by this girl's logic. He could only take advantage of the situation and lie. Anyway, no matter what, as long as he could make her retreat in the face of difficulties, it didn't matter what reason she used. What was important was the result. "Then I know. Thank you." Huang Xiaotao seemed to have finally figured something out. She smiled sweetly at Lin Yi. After putting on her veil again, she didn't say anything else and directly ran away. Phew! She finally gave up. Lin Yi looked at her back and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He stretched out his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. Talking to this girl was more tiring than fighting with someone. To be honest, with Huang Xiaotao's pure and beautiful appearance, coupled with her strong and kind character, any man would be happy to see her. Naturally, Lin Yi was no exception. After all, a fair and graceful lady was a gentleman's desire. This was the nature and common problem of men. The reason why Lin Yi was trying to find ways to reject her was that he really didn't want to bear more love debts. Having so many confidants was indeed a blessing that all men would be extremely envious of. But at the same time, it was also a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. From the beginning to the end, Lin Yi felt that he had too many confidants. Therefore, ever since he came to Heaven Stage Island, he deliberately avoided getting involved in love debts. He wholeheartedly cultivated and advanced, hoping to be able to wake up the women as soon as possible. If there was another Huang Xiaotao now, it would be unfair to both the many confidants and Huang Xiaotao herself. So it was better to give up the idea as soon as possible. It's probably because she's grateful that she's impulsive and wants to repay him. As long as she calms down and thinks about it, I believe she'll think it through. Lin Yi shook his head with a smile and muttered to himself. Little did he know that this kind of impulsiveness was indeed very likely to happen to other girls. But with Huang Xiaotao's always firm heart, how could she be so easily impulsive? 5 days passed in a flash. The day of the arranged battle between Su Zhaohe and Lin Yi finally arrived as scheduled under the watchful eyes of the public. On this day, the North Island arena was crowded, and the surrounding stands were packed, attracting more than 60% of the disciples of the 3 pavilions to watch the battle. There was no need to talk about Su Zhaohe, as it was said that he was about to become Shangguan Tianhua's disciple, and he was one of the brightest geniuses in the 3 great pavilions. As for Lin Yi, although he was just a new disciple in the welcoming pavilion, he was the most famous new disciple in recent years, and his name had long since spread throughout the 3 great pavilions. Both sides were in the limelight. Coupled with the clear gap in strength between them, this battle had already attracted much attention from the moment it was set, and became the latest topic of conversation among almost all the disciples of the 3 pavilions. In the short span of 5 days, the public had interpreted the grudge between the 2 into several different versions. Some people said that Lin Yi killed Su Zhaohe, and so Su Zhaohe wanted to avenge his cousin, and at the same time show off his strength to attract the attention of the Shangguan cabinet. This was what Su Zhaohe said when he challenged Lin Yi in public. There were also some who said that Huang Xiaotao had gone to the welcoming pavilion to meet with Su Zhaohe in private. This woman had been involved in a scandal with Su Zhaohe in the past, and due to her disfigurement in an accident, she was exiled to Clear Cloud Pavilion. It was because of her provocation that Su Zhaohe and Lin Yi became enemies. To be continued. Chapter 4171. Some people even said that Su Zhaohe not only wanted to be apprenticed to Shangguan Tianhua, but also wanted to be Shanghai Tianhua's grandson-in-law. Rumor had it that Lin Yi was very close to Shanghai Laner, so he naturally became a thorn in Su Zhaohe's side. Su Zhaohe wanted to get rid of Lin Yi as soon as possible, so he made a challenge. Various versions of the rumors were flying around, and each of them was very convincing. This battle, which was already the focus of attention, became even more eye-catching and even evolved into a fiery scene that was now full of people. But no matter which version they believed, the public opinion was always one-sided. In the face of Su Zhaohe, Lin Yi had no chance of winning. Accompanied by senior brother Ku Bai and several others, Lin Yi slowly stepped onto the North Island's arena. He looked around with a calm expression, and when he noticed the figure in the center of the stand, his eyes suddenly froze. Lin Yi never thought that his childish challenge could attract the top big shot of Shanghai Tianhua to watch the battle in person. It wasn't just him. Everyone else present had looks of shock on their faces when they saw Shangguan Tianhua arrive. They all thought that this top powerhouse had come for Su Zhaohe, and wanted to use this challenge to see if Su Zhaohe had the potential to become his proud disciple. Most people thought so, and Su Zhaohe, as one of the protagonists of this challenge, was even more convinced and overjoyed. It was impossible for a big shot like Shanghai Tianhua to specially come to watch the battle for a small newcomer like Lin Yi. The only reasonable explanation was that he really paid attention to him and wanted to see if he could catch his eye. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. During this time, the rumor that Su Xiaohe was going to apprentice to Shanghai Tianhua became more and more intense. Everyone had already believed it to be true, and some people were really uncertain. Instead, it was Su Xiaohe himself. The reason was very simple. Shanghai Tianhua had never explicitly said that he would accept him as a disciple, but intentionally or unintentionally praised him at a meeting of the elders, saying that he could be trained. Gradually, the rumor that Shanghai Tianhua was ready to accept him as a disciple gradually spread, and it was spread to everyone. In addition, Shanghai Tianhua himself did not deny it, so the rumor gradually became more serious. Su Xiaohe was still a little nervous, but now seeing Shanghai Tianhua specially attend the challenge for him, he felt as if a big stone had fallen to the ground. It was as if a huge rock had been lifted off the ground, and his heart was completely at ease. He thought to himself that as long as he trampled Lin Yi to death today and revealed all of his hidden strength, the matter of him becoming Lin Yi's disciple would be a done deal. Little did he know that Shanghai Tianhua's appearance this time was completely the masterpiece of Su Xiaohe. He had to come, and his beard was almost pulled off by his little granddaughter, the reason why he was forcibly pulled here. In fact, Shanghai Laner only had one idea, and that was to let him save Lin Yi. Not to say to directly stop the challenge, but at least when Lin Yi encountered a fatal danger. With the strength of Shanghai Tianhua, he could always easily stop it and would not let Lin Yi die on the spot. However, after glancing at the person standing beside Shanghai Tianhua and Shanghai Laner, Lin Yi could not help but be stunned. He suddenly saw Huang Xiaotao. Since the last time she went back, Huang Xiaotao did not take off her veil, and the news that she had restored her appearance did not spread. Everything was still as usual, and Lin Yi was not too surprised about it. What really surprised him was when Huang Xiaotao and Shanghai Laner got together. Looking at the way Shanghai Laner talked and laughed with her, the two seemed to have a good relationship. Had they been friends for a long time? Why had he never heard Shanghai Laner mention it? However, Lin Yi changed his mind. Huang Xiaotao was also a disciple of Chongtian Pavilion at the beginning, and there were only a few female disciples in Chongtian Pavilion. It seemed quite normal for Shanghai Laner to know her and become her best friend. Little did he know that although Huang Xiaotao was a disciple of Chongtian Pavilion at the beginning, she did not stay in Chongtian Pavilion for a long time. Moreover, there was a huge gap between her and Shanghai Laner. It was destined that they would not even have a chance to meet each other. How could they become best friends? Under normal circumstances, people of similar social status would have a common language. Those who could become Shanghai Laner's best friend were princesses, like Ning Xuefei. Huang Xiaotao, a grassroots disciple, obviously did not meet this condition. She and Shanghai Laner really got to know each other in the past few days, and the common ground between the two, or the source of their relationship becoming close, was because of Lin Yi. Senior sister Xiaotao, is what you told me before true? Little junior brother, can he really compete with a gold core stage master? Shanghai Laner looked at Lin Yi, who was walking on the ring, and asked worriedly again. This little girl really cared about Lin Yi very much. Huang Xiaotao sighed in her heart when she heard this. A few days ago, she saw Shanghai Laner having a headache because of this matter. She thought that the other party was Lin Yi's girlfriend, so she went up to comfort her and told her about this matter. In the beginning, Huang Xiaotao did not expect that this high and mighty Miss Shangguan would be so naive and unpretentious. After a while, the two actually became friends. Today, she was even dragged here by Shanghai Laner to cheer for Lin Yi. Of course, even if there was no Shanghai Laner, Huang Xiaotao would definitely come, but she would not stand in such a central place. However, Huang Xiaotao was still very happy to be able to become good friends with Shanghai Laner. It was not because of Shanghai Laner's noble status. She was not the kind of girl who loved vanity, but because the other party was Lin Yi's girlfriend. After getting along well with her, at least she could reduce some obstacles when she was with Lin Yi in the future. Well, of course, it's all true. Although we escaped in advance that day, we could still feel the aura from the fight behind us. The other party was definitely a gold core stage master. Lin Yi is still intact, which is enough to prove that he at least has the ability to compete with an early stage gold core stage master. So, Lunner, you don't have to worry. Huang Xiaotao said with certainty. These words were not only to comfort Shanghai Laner, but also to comfort herself. After all, this matter was also her own speculation, and she was not 100% sure. Previously, when the gold core stage master tipped off Su Zhaohe, he did not mention his own strength at all. Anyway, he was a casual cultivator, and no one would pay attention to him. The reason why he did not mention it was because this matter was too shameful. He was a middle stage gold core stage master, but he was seriously injured by a kid at the peak of the late stage foundation establishment realm. If this was spread, he would be laughed at. To be continued. Chapter 4172. Oh, that's good. Shanghai Laner was a little relieved, but she still turned to Shanghai Tianhua and said seriously, Grandpa, you can't just stand by and watch. You can't let anything happen to little junior brother. Absolutely not. I know, little Lon. You have said it 800 times. Grandpa's ears are almost calloused from hearing it. Shanghai Tianhua said helplessly. The pavilion master of Soaring Sky Pavilion was forced to be a member of the fire rescue team. This matter really made people not know whether to laugh or cry. Able to compete with a golden core stage master? Shanghai Tianhua looked at Lin Yi on the arena with a faint smile on his face. This little guy is getting more and more interesting. But if that's all, it's still not enough to fight against Su Zhaohe. On the arena, Lin Yi and Su Zhaohe were facing each other. Everyone's eyes began to focus on them, and the noisy discussion slowly calmed down. Only Kong Mingming and Nan Tianba and the others were still gloating and laughing. Today was the day of Lin Yi's death. Of course, they had to enjoy such a celebratory day. Unfortunately, Si Haishao was not present. Otherwise, they would probably laugh even more unscrupulously. After all, this was the territory of the 3 pavilions. Outsiders were not allowed to enter, and Si Haishao had made a big mistake by flirting with Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei. If he came here today, he would probably be drowned by the spit of the disciples of the 3 pavilions. So even if his heart was itching, he could only stay in the Central Chamber of Commerce and wait for the news of Lin Yi's death. Boy, I heard that you are the #1 newcomer of the Welcoming Pavilion. Some time ago you were in the limelight? Su Zhaohe finally spoke. In an instant, the audience was completely quiet. Everyone had a look of watching a good show, waiting for the show to begin. I have no choice. There are always some boring people who come to me. I have to step on them. I'm just trying my best. Lin Yi replied faintly. Hey, your strength is not much, but you really have the demeanor of a pretentious leader. You seem to be quite proud of yourself. Su Zhaohe laughed mockingly. Then he pretended to be indifferent and said disdainfully, Let me tell you, I was once the #1 rookie. Don't display your slight skill in front of me. You will only be humiliating yourself. Oh, so you're saying that you're a senior? Lin Yi raised an eyebrow in surprise and smiled. That does seem to be an old saying. In the Yangtze River, the new waves push the old waves, and the old waves die on the beach. The crowd burst into laughter when they heard that. Although the fight hadn't started yet, it was quite interesting to watch the 2 of them bicker. Lin Yi was definitely not Su Zhaohe's opponent in a fight, but his mouth wasn't holding back at all. Sharp-tongued. Probably only a frog at the bottom of a well would say such ignorant and fearless words. Su Zhaohe sneered. Looking at Shanghai Tianhua on the stage, he could not wait to show off, so he pretended to be generous and said, Let's not talk too much nonsense. Let's hurry up and start. to avoid wasting everyone's time. As a senior, I will let you make one move first, lest others say that I am bullying the weak. Come on. Or something else. If you let me make one move, you won't have a chance. Lin Yi shook his head and said, "Ha, childish." Su Zhaohe did not care and laughed loudly. He no longer hid his strength. Suddenly, he released the powerful aura of an early-stage gold core cultivator and said proudly, "You still don't know I have successfully formed my gold core. Today, I am dealing with you purely to beat up a child. That is why I am being merciful and letting you make one move, lest you die with regrets." Ha ha ha. The audience was suddenly in an uproar. Everyone could not help but look at each other. They had never heard anyone say that Su Zhaohe was already an early-stage gold core cultivator. If they remembered correctly, Su Zhaohe was not even 40 years old. Successfully forming his gold core at such a young age was not unprecedented. But at least in the history of the three great pavilions, he could be counted as one of the rare geniuses. No wonder Pavilion Master Shangguan would fancy him. His talent is too terrifying. That's right. Successfully forming his gold core before the age of 40. If we count back, it should be Ram Jia, right? That's right. I didn't expect that he has already reached the level of being on par with Hall Master Gongyang. The name of a once-in-a-thousand-years genius is indeed not false. Listening to the audience's praises, the corners of Lin Yi's mouth slightly curved up. Although he had not fought with Ramjia before, judging purely from his intuition, even the original Ramjia was not someone that Su Zhaohe could compare to. These people actually compared the two of them, who knew how Ramjia would feel when he heard this. "Brat, do you see the gap now?" Su Zhaohe listened to these words and felt very pleased. He said complacently, "Even if you and I are both #1 newcomers, the value is not the same. We're not on the same level at all. I am the first disciple from the same batch of 3 great pavilions to form my gold core." "Oh, so what?" Lin Yi asked indifferently. "So what? Humph. Trash like you is also worthy of being called #1 newcomer? Aren't you ashamed after seeing me? How thick is your skin?" Su Zhaohe sneered and said, "Oh, then how can I be worthy of this title?" Lin Yi said with a playful smile, "At least be the same as me. Form your gold core at 35. Su Zhaohe said proudly with his nose in the air, "Then I'm afraid I can't do it. The difficulty is too high." Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. "Ha ha ha ha, even you know you can't do it. It seems that you are not so stupid that you can't be saved." Su Zhaohe immediately laughed when he heard this. The audience laughed along, especially Kong Mingming and the others. They laughed the most happily and proudly. Lin Yi actually took the initiative to admit defeat in front of so many people. This was the first time. However, Lin Yi's next sentence made the audience's laughter stop abruptly. "I'm sorry, I'm only 20 this year. It's a little early." Lin Yi shrugged helplessly. What do you mean?" Su Zhaohe, like the audience, looked puzzled and looked at each other. Lin Yi smiled faintly, and then the aura around him suddenly changed. The powerful aura of the early gold core stage poured out in an instant. Su Zhaohe, who was also an early gold core stage expert, was like a small boat in a stormy sea in front of him. He was no longer a threat. Instead, he gave people the feeling that he could be swallowed at any time. In an instant, the audience was in an uproar. Su Zhaohe on the stage, Kong Mingming, and the others on the stage all had their mouths wide open. To be continued. Chapter 4173. How was this possible? This guy was at the early phase of Golden Core? This was completely unbelievable. The other spectators weren't sure of Lin Yi's age, but Kong Mingming was very clear that Lin Yi was only 20 years old. Completing Golden Core at 20, what the hell was that? Su Zhaohe, A 35-year-old so-called genius couldn't even be compared. Even if you looked at the entire history of Sky-class Island and counted all the powerful gods, you probably wouldn't be able to find a 20-year-old Golden Core practitioner. What was Lin Yi? A freak or a freak? Compared to Kong Mingming and the others who were shocked, the bitter disciple and Xiao Ran let out a long breath. When they found out that Su Zhaohe was at the early phase of Golden Core, they were really worried for Lin Yi. They didn't think that Lin Yi would turn the situation around in the blink of an eye. Completing Golden Core at the Welcome Pavilion, Lin Yi wasn't just the #1 newbie right now. Even in the history of the 3 great pavilions, he was the #1 newbie. He could even beat a legendary figure like Zhang Liju. This was a terrifying achievement that would be recorded in the history books. The bitter disciple and the others couldn't calm down. On the other side, Shanghai Laner and Huang Xiaotao were even more surprised and overjoyed. They were more worried for Lin Yi than these people. When they found out that Su Zhaohe was at the early phase of Golden Core, Shanghai Laner even pulled on her grandpa's beard, ready to ask Shanghai Tianhua to forcefully stop the fight. As for Huang Xiaotao, although she knew that Lin Yi could escape from a Golden Core master, it was a completely different concept from fighting Su Zhaohe at the early phase of Golden Core. No matter how much she hated Su Zhaohe, there was one thing that couldn't be denied. This person was very strong. He could already fight a Golden Core master head-on when he was at the peak of Foundation establishment. Now that he was at the early phase of Golden Core, didn't that mean that he was even stronger? The odds were against him. The 2 women's judgment of the situation was exactly the same as the others. However, they didn't expect that Lin Yi was already in the early stage of the Gold Core realm. This was truly shocking news. However, amateurs could only watch for fun, while experts could see for themselves the ropes. Although everyone present had been blinded by Lin Yi's display, none of them were able to see what was truly so heaven-defying about him. Only Shangguan Tianhua had been able to see through the essence of it all. At this moment, the way he looked at Lin, he was shining with a strange light. $10,000 pill? Could it be that this little fellow had a perfect breakthrough? Even the top boss of Shanghai Tianhua was shocked by Lin Yi at this moment. They were both at the early stage of the Jian stage, but the aura around Lin Yi was not something that a so-called millennium genius like Su Zhaohe could compare with. Core formation at the age of 20 was already an earth-shattering event. Coupled with the legendary perfect breakthrough, it was even more exaggerated and heaven-defying. Shanghai Tianhua couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The younger generation will surpass us in time. What? You are also in the early stage of the Gold Core realm? Su Zhaohe, the person involved, was shocked and angry at this moment. He thought that it would be as easy as stepping on an ant to kill Lin Yi, but this time he suddenly felt guilty. Yes, so your proposal of forming the Gold Core at the age of 35 is too difficult for me. I really can't accomplish it. Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders playfully and said, if nothing unexpected happens, I may already be in the nascent soul realm by that time. I really can't come back to form the Gold Core. I can't meet your requirements. The audience suddenly burst into laughter. The world had always been full of praising the strong and trampling on the weak. They who were watching the show naturally stood on the side of the strong. Previously, they thought that Su Zhaohe would definitely defeat Lin Yi, but now it seemed that it was not the case at all. The wind naturally turned around. Su Zhaohe was arrogant and flamboyant, and there were many people who disliked him. Humph, nascent soul realm? To hell with you! Facing the ridicule of the crowd, Su Zhaohe's nose instantly became crooked with anger. His face turned livid, and he said angrily, today, I will let you understand that there is always someone better than you. Even if we are both in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, there is still a difference in strength. In front of me, you are just a piece of trash with empty levels. Go to hell. As he spoke, the arena under Su Zhaohe's feet suddenly exploded, and his figure instantly disappeared. Finally, he did not dare to boast about letting Lin Yi make one move again. After all, Su Xiaohe was not stupid. Although he admitted that he was invincible in the same realm as Lin Yi, he still thought that he had a 100% chance of winning. He also knew that it was not so easy to deal with a battle of the same realm. If he was a little careless, he might really fail miserably. Therefore, even if he had to eat his words and lose face, Su Xiaohe still chose to strike first. Only the person who laughed last had the right to speak. As long as he could smoothly step on Lin Yi, the stronger Lin Yi was, the more awesome he could be. So fast! Seeing that the fight had finally begun, everyone on the grandstand was excited and exclaimed one by one. There were so many disciples of the 3 pavilions, and there were many gold core realm experts among them. But even with their eyesight, they could not help but be shocked when they saw Su Xiaohe's skills at this moment, and their faces showed fear. If it was a few experts in the early stage of the gold core realm in the crowd, not to mention fighting against Su Xiaohe, with the horrifying speed he showed at the moment, they could not even touch the hem of his clothes and would be easily killed. There was nothing that could not be overcome. Only speed could not be overcome. This principle was not only applicable to martial arts, but also to cultivators like them. However, what he did next was truly astounding. Bang! An explosion suddenly sounded out from the arena. Su Xiaohe's figure, which was already fast to the point of being blurry, suddenly sped up by a great deal along with this explosion. The spectators below the arena weren't even able to catch his figure with their eyes, let alone go against him. Breaking through the sound barrier? This speed is indeed not bad for ordinary early-stage gold core realm experts. But in front of me, it's still too weak. Lin Yi stood on the stage and said with a faint smile, his hand still behind his back, unmoving, "You're still trying to act cool even when you're about to die. I'll grant your wish." Su Xiaohe laughed sinisterly. His speed did not decrease, but increased instead. His hands formed claws, and a peerlessly powerful genuine qi quickly condensed at the tip of his claws, emitting a terrifyingly powerful qi. Every time he slashed through the air, he would leave behind 5 streams of genuine qi, like sharp blades. Following that, under the terrified gazes of the audience, in the blink of an eye, a dense spider web had appeared on the stage, quickly surrounding and enveloping Lin Yi from all directions. This was not an ordinary net. Every strand of genuine qi could cut through iron like mud, and was not inferior to the existence of a divine weapon. Once one was covered by this net, chopping them into 8 pieces would be an extravagant dream. An entire person would only be left with a pile of minced meat. To be continued. Chapter 4174. Heaven's Net Cover. Countless experts have died under my hands. You'll be the next. Su Xiaohe's sinister laughter resounded in the air. In today's battle, he had never thought of giving his opponent a way out. The more pretentious Lin Yi's performance was, the stronger his killing intent was. Successfully forming his golden core at the age of 20, Lin Yi was too big of a threat. If he didn't get rid of him today, there would be endless troubles in the future. For a moment, everyone in the arena didn't dare to breathe too loudly. The bitter seniors were so nervous that they were secretly trembling. Shanghai Laner even pulled Shanghai Tianhua, indicating that he could save Lin Yi. In their eyes, although Lin Yi was also an early-stage golden core expert, Su Xiaohe's reputation wasn't undeserved. Today's battle was still very dangerous. Only Shanghai Tianhua was calm as usual. Lin Yi was the strongest golden core expert who had a perfect breakthrough. How could he lose to Su Xiaohe, who was at the same level? Don't be ridiculous. Strangle. Su Xiaohe's eyes lit up as he retracted his heaven's net. From all directions, countless rays of energy that could cut through gold and iron directly covered the top of Lin Yi's head, making it impossible for him to escape. However, Lin Yi wasn't flustered at all. Taking advantage of the last moment when the heaven's net was retracted, He suddenly moved and threw 1,000 frenzied kicks at the empty air. Boom! Su Zhaoha's sorry figure suddenly appeared on Lin Yi's leg. Then, like a cannonball, he flew out and penetrated the 10 meters thick stone wall, burying himself deep under the spectator stand. As for the deadly Heaven's Net, with this shocking kick, it instantly vanished into thin air as if it had never appeared. Such a sudden scene shocked everyone so much that they couldn't close their jaws. One after another, they hurriedly looked at the deep pit below. At this moment, Su Zhaoha's eyes had already turned white. His bloodshot eyes were wide open, and he couldn't move. It was obvious that he was exhaling more than he was inhaling. One move. Instant kill. After a long silence, it was Unknown who cried out in surprise. Only then did everyone react, and they instantly went into an uproar as they discussed incessantly. The number 1 newcomer really deserved his reputation. He was not some pretentious leader at all, but he really had the strength to suppress others. They were both experts in the early stage of the Gold Core realm. But Su Zhaoha, who was praised to the heavens, could not even withstand one move in front of him. What kind of monster was this? However, when Lin Yi faintly opened his mouth, the crowd quietened down spontaneously. At this moment, he was the only protagonist here. Originally, I could have spared you, but I have a friend called Huang Xiaotao. Lin Yi said indifferently to the deep pit. Su Zhaoha, who was already on his last breath, suddenly stiffened when he heard this. After twitching helplessly for a while in despair, he actually died on the spot. He really did it for me. Huang Xiaotao, who was on the spectator stand, was instantly moved to tears. She was happy that Lin Yi was able to kill Su Zhaoha in one move, but the last sentence sounded even rarer to her than killing Su Zhaoha in one move. Senior sister Xiaotao, do you like junior brother? Shanghai Laner, who was also immersed in surprise, suddenly asked. She looked at Huang Xiaotao with some doubts, and suddenly opened her mouth to ask. This question came so suddenly that Huang Xiaotao suddenly stuttered and did not know how to answer. Sure enough. Do you want me to be a matchmaker for you? Shanghai Laner could not help but laugh, and immediately suggested on a whim. However, when she said this, she did not know why her heart was slightly tightened, but she did not understand why it was like this. However, Shanghai Laner was not a sensitive person. Although she felt that it was a little strange, she did not take it to heart. This. Huang Xiaotao was so excited that she couldn't speak coherently. Did Shangguanlan's words mean that she accepted her? If that was the case, wouldn't she be able to be with Lin Yi openly without any obstacles? This silly girl, Shanghai Tianhua, who was watching from the side, could not help but secretly smile bitterly and shake his head, but he did not say anything. He only cared about whether Lin Yi was strong enough and whether he could take good care of his granddaughter. As for how many female confidants Lin Yi had, it was not something he cared about. Polygamy had always been practiced on Heaven Stage Island. He was not to the extent that Lin Yi had to marry only Shangguan Laner. Seeing the shocked expressions of all the people present, Lin Yi smiled faintly, thinking that today's first appearance after returning to the North Island could be considered a perfect ending. Killing Su Zhaoha with one move, such a strong and domineering performance, was to deter the rascals. As expected by Lin Yi, what he had done in the Middle Island would be spread back to the North Island sooner or later. Things like Tiandan Pavilion would definitely make people jealous. It was inevitable that some people would have evil intentions, so he needed to suppress them forcefully. At this critical juncture, Su Zhaoha, the scumbag, came to him on his own initiative. With the previous hatred and old hatred, how could he not kill him? Looking at Lin Yi's many enemies in the North Island, including Nan Tianba, the Southern Skygate brothers, as well as people like Kong Mingming and Morongzhen, with his current strength, he was no longer afraid of them. Their strength was no longer at the same level. Although, due to the rules of the 3 pavilions, Lin Yi could not directly kill them. After seeing the scene today, they would definitely not dare to easily provoke him again. Otherwise, they would learn from Su Zhaoha's mistakes. Absolute strength had absolute deterrence. When one's strength was strong enough to crush others, blindly hiding his strength would cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. When necessary, he needed to show his strength and let these rascals despair. How could this be? It's only been more than a month. How could he be an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm? He could even kill Su Zhaoha in one move. How is this possible? Murongzhen stared at Lin Yi on the stage and muttered to herself. Not long ago, she was still fantasizing about making Lin Yi kneel under her skirt and beg for mercy. She did not expect that after such a short period of time, Lin Yi had become an existence that she needed to look up to. She could not catch up with his footsteps at all. On the contrary, Kong Mingming, who hated Lin Yi to the bone, was shocked at this time, but he did not look too depressed. Previously in the secular world, he had been chasing after Lin Yi and always wanted to counterattack, but he had never succeeded. Therefore, he had long been used to this kind of thing. Since he could not kill him this time, he would admit defeat for the time being. Anyway, he had always been a shameless person, and he had never thought of using his own strength to overwhelm Lin Yi. No matter how strong Lin Yi was, there would always be someone stronger. When the time came, he would just provoke them. Floating astronomy. Chapter 41, 75. As expected of boss Lin Yi, it was so satisfying. Zhong Pingliang's heart was filled with excitement. He had long submitted to Lin Yi. The stronger Lin Yi was, the happier he was. He couldn't wait for his boss to be invincible. Among the crowd, only Meng Tong's expression did not change. He calmly looked at Lin Yi on the stage. No one knew what he was thinking. As for Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmen, they looked at each other with lingering fear. Su Zhaoha had the ability to kill people above his level. He was at least comparable to an early-stage Golden Core expert. But in the end, he was killed by Lin Yi as if he was killing a chicken. If it was Nan Tianba, his ending would not be any better. As for Nan Tianmen, who was only at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm, there was no need to talk about it. After today's battle, Lin Yi had become an existence that they could only look up to. If they were alone, they would definitely not dare to provoke him. Otherwise, they would really be courting death. In the crowd, there was a man wearing a bamboo hat, his face obscured. He shuddered as he looked at Lin Yi, who was exuding a domineering aura. He shrunk his neck and quickly ran away. This person was not a disciple of the three great pavilions. He had mixed in with the crowd. If Lin Yi was standing in front of him, he would definitely recognize the face under the bamboo hat. It was the middle stage Golden Core expert that he had met on Hutsai, Tianwu Mountain. Back then, when he fought with Lin Yi, both of them were injured. He was forced to go into seclusion to recuperate for a month. Only recently did he barely recover from his injuries. He could finally come out of seclusion. The first thing he did was to report to Su Zhaoha that Lin Yi had killed Su Zhaohu and the others. He only had one goal, to kill with a borrowed knife. Lin Yi's identity was exposed. Su Zhaoha challenged him in public. Everything was going according to his plan. In his mind, although he was tricked by Lin Yi's alchemic firebomb, he still had lingering fears. Even now, Su Zhaoha still had a lingering fear in his heart. However, with Su Zhaoha's well-known strength as a genius, even if things did not go smoothly against a mere Lin Yi, at least he would not make any big mistakes. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that things would turn out like this. Su Zhaoha, who was in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, was so weak in front of Lin Yi. Even if his strength was stronger than Su Zhaoha, it was still very limited. How could he be the opponent of Lin Yi? What made him even more puzzled was that no matter how hard he racked his brains, more than a month ago, Lin Yi was clearly only at the Foundation establishment stage. How did he suddenly become an early-stage Gold core stage expert now. Could it be that he had been hiding his strength? Even if it was the myriad golden dan fruit, normally it could only be used to increase the strength of a golden dan stage expert. It was impossible for a foundation establishment stage expert to reach core formation in one step, right? This kind of thing was simply unheard of, and it was completely unrealistic. This problem, no matter how much the man in the bamboo hat thought about it, he could not figure it out. In his heart, apart from hatred towards Lin Yi, there was also a faint trace of indescribable fear. Previously, Lin Yi, who was only at the foundation establishment stage, had already fought with him until both sides suffered. Now, Lin Yi was already at the early stage of the gold core realm. His strength had probably skyrocketed by more than 10 times. What else could he do? Find a chance to sneak an attack on Lin Yi? As soon as this idea popped up, the man in the bamboo had already had a guilty conscience. If he really did so, there was more than a 90% chance that nothing would happen to Lin Yi, but he himself would follow in the footsteps of Su Xiaohe. However, if he just watched as Lin Yi was free and unfettered like this, his heart would be scratched by 100 claws. His heart was like 100 claws scratching at it, and he definitely wouldn't let it go. If he took revenge, he might be killed instead. If he did not take revenge, he could not swallow this resentment. If he did not untie the knot in his heart, it might even delay his future cultivation. The man in the bamboo hat was really in a dilemma. Am I just going to watch that brat Lin Yi be unscrupulous like this? The man in the bamboo hat muttered unwillingly as he pinched his chin. At this moment, suddenly a hand behind him silently patted on his shoulder. Who? The man in the bamboo hat was instantly scared out of his wits. He almost had a mental illness. He hurriedly jumped a step forward. Then he turned his head in shock and looked behind him. There was a mysterious man, dressed in black, whose face could not be seen. The man in the bamboo hat was suddenly scared out of his wits. He looked at the man with a face of vigilance. To be able to quietly appear less than a step behind him, and he, an expert at the middle stage of the gold core realm, did not notice it at all. If the other party had the intention to kill him, he would have died 100 times by now. The strength of this mysterious man in black was absolutely unfathomable. I have a way to let you quickly improve your strength. Are you interested? The mysterious man in black said faintly. Quickly improve my strength? There is such a good thing? The man in the bamboo hat looked at the other party with a face of vigilance. Then he sneered and said, "There is no free lunch in this world. Your Excellency, using such a childish trick to deceive people. Aren't you looking down on me too much?" In Jianghu, there were too many cases of mutual deception. A little carelessness could lead to falling into someone else's trap. As an expert at the middle stage of the gold core realm, the man in the bamboo had experienced this kind of thing many times. Hee, you are quite vigilant. The mysterious man in black smiled indifferently. Then his body suddenly shook and disappeared into thin air. The next moment, he appeared behind the man in the bamboo hat. The man in the bamboo hat was once again frightened. The supersonic speed that Su Xiaohe displayed on the arena was simply child's play compared to that of the mysterious man in black. It was not worth mentioning, and he once again confirmed one thing. If the other party wanted to kill him, it would indeed be effortless. However, the mysterious man in black obviously did not have this intention. He just whispered something in his ear and turned away. However, it was this simple sentence that made the man in the bamboo hat's face change. Then his attitude immediately changed 180 degrees. He hurriedly nodded and followed the mysterious man in black with a face of trust. After a while, the man in the bamboo hat was already in an underground secret room. He had been injected with a kind of medicine and was in the process of digesting the medicine. At the same time, right above the secret room, in a private room with a unique charm, the black-robed man was respectfully reporting to a mysterious woman. I have already injected him with the medicine and taught him the trick of digesting the medicine. The man in black bowed and reported. Okay. The mysterious woman nodded as she continued arranging the flowers. But may I be so bold to ask, what kind of medicine is this? The man in black couldn't help but feel a little strange. This was the first time he had come into contact with this medicine. He had never seen it before. With his level and status, this was very rare. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. You are also an old man. Don't you even know these rules? The mysterious woman's calm tone had a little more worry. To be continued, that you're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.